Chapter 3179 Absolute Een Barrier. Everyone looked at Tang 13 and Wufeng, who were high up in the sky, with trembling eyes. Crown Prince Darkwing has used Wings of Death. Don't tell me the sacred demonic blood lord will be instantly killed by him? Oomph. This outsider shouldn't have become the sacred demonic blood lord in the first place. If Crown Prince Darkwing can kill him, it'll definitely be a good thing for our Azura race. The sacred demonic blood lord is someone who wants to unify the 5 Azura races. How can an outsider become the sacred demonic blood lord? The crowd discussed as they looked at Tang 13 with venomous gazes. Most people believe that Tang 13 was no match for Wufeng. Even if Tang 13 had fused with the sacred demonic blood, he only had the strength of a 5th-order pseudo-sage. Meanwhile, Wufeng was an 8th-order pseudo-sage. Coupled with the terrifying Wings of Death, even an ordinary 9th-order pseudo-sage was no match for him. Tang 13. Tang Yu looked at Tang 13 as her beautiful eyes trembled slightly. Her eyes revealed a strange worry. She was not worried that Tang 13 would die in Wufeng's hands. Instead, she was worried that Tang 13 would kill Wufeng. She knew very well how strong Tang 13 was. Even if Wufeng had the Wings of Death, he was absolutely no match for Tang 13. The power of the absolute Een Ghost was not something ordinary people could imagine. Sacred demonic bloodlord, is it? At that moment, Wufeng moved and growled, "I'll kill you in one move." With that, Wufeng's wings flapped, causing the world to tremble. But at that instant, the corner of Tang 13's lips curled up slightly. There was a strange smile in her eyes. Following that, his eyes trembled as his pupils turned a strange black color. His eyes seemed like bottomless abysses. Boom! The next moment, a massive ocular power appeared. It was like an invisible hand that covered the void. Oh! Instantly, Wufeng felt the surrounding void sink. It made his expression change, as he could not help but exclaim. Following that, an even stranger scene happened. The surrounding void suddenly darkened, and Wufeng looked up and saw a pitch-black claw appear above his head. It came crashing down at him. This sudden scene caught him off guard. The wings on his back suddenly flapped, releasing a frightening death vortex that bombarded the pitch-black claws high in the sky. Pooh! However, the whirlpool of death directly passed through the pitch-black sharp claws. It was unable to block the sharp claws. The strange scene made Wufeng's eyes quiver as he cried out in horror. The next instant, the pitch-black claw descended, wrapping around Wufeng like a cage. This strange scene caused everyone's eyes to shiver in fear. Nobody expected Tang 13 to have such a terrifying ability. One move, just one move, had trapped Wufeng. Nie Tion's brows furrowed in surprise. He was just worried about Tang 13, but it seemed like it was unnecessary. Such a strange skill. Saint Devil Grandmaster looked at Tang 13 and gasped. He seemed to understand why the demonic saint's blood would choose Tang 13. Wufeng, is this all you've got? Tang 13 smiled faintly after trapping Wufeng. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Looks like the real trash is not me, but you. Bastard." Wufeng bellowed angrily as he was trapped in the claw cage. He was extremely violent. He wanted to use the Wings of Death to break out of the cage, but he was shocked to find that his Yuan Meridian and Bloodline power were tightly suppressed. He could not unleash any of his power at all. More terrifyingly, he felt that the surrounding space was filled with an extremely dark power that was constantly seeping into his body. "You're already flustered and exasperated?" Tang 13 smiled faintly and said, "Looks like it does not feel good to be toyed with." The cage of sharp claws was a barrier formed by eye power. It was known as the Absolute Een Barrier. Tang 13's ghost had already reached the level of Absolute Een Ghost Eye. With his current strength, unless he was a true Saint Realm warrior, there was no way he could break the Absolute Een Barrier. The most terrifying thing about the Absolute Een Barrier was that the power of the Absolute Een Eye could constantly seep into a warrior's martial body and seal the warrior's Yuan Meridian and Bloodline power. Bastard! Let me out if you have the guts. We'll fight it out with our true strength. What kind of skill are you playing with such insidious tricks? Unwoofing shouted. He was about to go crazy. Unwoofing, I can defeat you with such a weak skill. If I really used the power of the ghost eye, would you still be alive? Tang 13 sneered. Following that, with a thought, the eye powers and the absolute Een barrier turned violent as they surged into Unwoofing's body. Damn it! Unwoofing felt the power in his body wreaking havoc. His expression changed drastically as he exclaimed. Everyone's eyes trembled. They were confused. They did not know what was happening. Tang 13's ability was too strange. They could not see through it. All right, you can come out now, Tang 13 suddenly said. Following that, the cage of sharp claws vanished. Darn, brat, you're courting death. When Unwoofing realized that the cage around him had vanished, he roared angrily. He wanted to attack, but his expression changed and he froze on the spot. He discovered that he could not use his Yuan Meridian and Bloodline power. It was as though they had been sealed by an invisible lock. This discovery shocked him on the spot. He did not know what Tang 13 had left in his body. Unwoofing, hand over the hand of destruction and admit defeat. At that moment, Tang 13's expression sank. She said cold, enunciating each word clearly. I'll only say it once. You're courting. Unwoofing growled, but before he could finish his sentence, he froze once again. Terrifying bloody wounds appeared on his body. Furthermore, they were slowly tearing open. It was as though his entire body was about to be torn apart. Tang 13, what did you do to me? The sudden scene made Unwoofing's expression palpitate as he exclaimed with a trembling voice. Unwoofing, I don't want to kill you. Don't make me repeat myself. Tang 13's eyes were extremely gloomy as her killing intent condensed into something corporeal. Unwoofing could sense Tang 13's killing intent as his eyes quivered. At that moment, he did not doubt that Tang 13 would really kill him. I admit defeat. Without any hesitation, Unwoofing's eyes flickered as he admitted defeat. Hand over the hand of destruction, Tang 13's gaze sank slightly as she spoke again. Unwoofing's expression stiffened. After a moment of hesitation, he finally took out the hand of destruction. He had just obtained the hand of destruction and was about to hand it over immediately. It was obvious how furious he was. Moreover, he had lost this battle unjustly. He had not even understood what had happened, and he had lost in a daze. Here you go. Although he was extremely unwilling, Unwoofing still handed over the hand of destruction. How can you return something that you snatched? But at that moment, a deep voice suddenly boomed. Following that, a figure appeared and extended his hand. A massive suction force appeared and sucked Unwoofing over. Oh! The sudden scene made Tang 13's eyes narrow. When she looked over, she saw that the person was none other than Sirius Chun. At that moment, Sirius Chun's eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked extremely sinister as his lips curled into a cold arc. Oh no! Tang 13's eyes trembled as she immediately reacted. She exclaimed inwardly. Chapter 3180. Despicable. Tang 13 instantly understood when she saw Fei Sirius Chun's figure. Her eyes couldn't help but tremble. Fei Sirius Chun had suddenly attacked. Not only did he want to snatch the hand of destruction, but he also wanted to kill Unwoofing. He must have felt threatened by Unwoofing, which was why he wanted to kill Unwoofing. The Darkwing Azura clan was the strongest Azura clan apart from the Fei Sirius clan. The two clans were constantly at odds with each other. Although Unwoofing had been defeated by Tang 13, he still had his talent and strength. More importantly, he had awakened one of the 5 Azura taboos, Deathwing. How could Fei Sirius Chun allow such a talented Darkwing Azura to live? Crown Prince Fei Tian. At that moment, everyone saw Fei Sirius Chun's figure suddenly attack Unwoofing. Their eyes couldn't help but quiver as they exclaimed. Unwoofing had admitted defeat, so his battle with Tang 13 was over. Fei Sirius Chun's attack wasn't against the rules. However, the speed of his attack was a little too fast. Save me, in midair, Unwoofing suddenly sensed the terrifying killing intent. His eyes quivered as he exclaimed in shock. He never expected Fei Sirius Chun to attack him at that moment. His martial body had been sealed by the ocular power, so he couldn't release any of his strength. He was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Stop! In the blink of an eye, Tang 13's expression changed. She screamed and moved. The reason why he didn't kill An Wufeng was because of the latter's identity. Regardless, An Wufeng was the crown prince of the Darkwing Azura clan. Furthermore, he was Tang Yuyu's blood brother. Even if An Wufeng had never treated Tang Yuyu as a sister, Tang Yuyu had never thought of killing him. Furthermore, Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu would be staying in the Darkwing Empire for a long period of time. He obviously couldn't kill the crown prince. If Fei Sirius Chun wanted to kill An Wufeng, Tang 13 had to stop him. If An Wufeng died to Fei Sirius Chun, Tang 13 would be responsible. After all, he was the one who had sealed An Wufeng's martial body. Blood Moon Reversal. Tang 13 growled in midair. Her eyes trembled slightly as a terrifying ocular power appeared. Swoosh! After that, a blood-red crescent moon appeared in the sky, and it was like a shocking and sharp blade that shot out murderously. It was fierce and murderous to the extreme, and it revealed an extremely ruthless aura. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Tang 13 didn't have enough time to gather his vision. The reverse blood moon was the limit of what he could do. The most terrifying thing about his ghost was that he could slowly accumulate eye bloodline power. The most troublesome part was the condensation of eye bloodline power. If he wanted to use a big move, like the absolute Een barrier, he would have to condense his eye power in advance. The reason why he could easily defeat An Wufeng was because he had gathered sufficient eye powers in his eyes before he went on stage. But now, he didn't have any time to gather his eye bloodline power when attacking someone other than Sirius Chun, so he could only attack hastily. Furthermore, the absolute Een formation had exhausted a large amount of his eye bloodline power, so the might of the reverse blood moon slaughter wasn't as strong as usual. Oh no! The moment Tang 13 made her move, Nye Tion's eyes widened. His expression changed, and his eyes widened. Inwardly, he screamed. Tang 13 had been tricked. Perhaps Tang 13 was too close to Sirius Chun, so she made the wrong judgment. Sirius Chun did have killing intent, but his killing intent wasn't directed at An Wufeng, but at Tang 13. Sirius Chun was a cunning person. On the surface, he was attacking An Wufeng, but his real target was Tang 13. Saint Demon Patriarch also noticed something fishy. His face sank and his eyes froze. Oomph. Good timing. At that moment, Sirius Chin's sinister laughter came from high in the sky. His eyes were extremely cold, filled with killing intent. His aura suddenly rose to the limit, and he attacked. Boom! Sirius Chun gathered all his strength and struck out with his palm. The moment the palm energy howled, the space shook as if the entire world was shaking. Tang 13, who was in midair, suddenly felt the violent aura and sharp killing intent. His eyes froze, and he exclaimed. At that moment, he finally realized that Sirius Chun was coming for him. Despicable! Tang 13 growled. His body came to a halt, and he wanted to retreat. You were smart, but you realized it too late. Sirius Chun smiled coldly. His terrifying palm shadow suddenly exploded with a terrifying power. A terrifying aura appeared, as if it was going to destroy the world, and it pressed down on Tang 13. Sirius Chin's sudden attack was not to kill An Wufeng, nor was he trying to steal the hand of destruction. His real target was Tang 13. Actually, in his mind, be it An Wufeng or the hand of destruction, they were nothing to him. Only Tang 13's holy demon blood was what he was really interested in. He was very afraid of the ghost Eye, so he used such a despicable method to kill Tang 13. Also, after killing Tang 13, he was not afraid of anything. He believed that with his talent, he would definitely be able to merge with the holy demon blood. As long as he merged with the holy demon blood, he would be the holy demon bloodlord. Even the Saint Demon Patriarch would not dare to do anything to him. As for the other Shura race members, there was no need to worry. Tang 13 was an outsider, so she should not be the holy demon bloodlord. The real holy demon bloodlord should be me, Sirius Chun. Sirius Chin's eyes were dark, and his lips curled into a murderous smile. He used almost all of his strength in this palm strike. He wanted to kill Tang 13 with one strike. The sudden scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble as they cried out in horror. At this moment, even an idiot could tell that the person Sirius Chun really wanted to kill was Tang 13. No one expected that Sirius Chun would use such a despicable method to attack. Tang 13. Tang Yuyu's beautiful eyes shook, and her pretty face froze as she screamed. Tang 13 was in midair. In a moment of desperation, her eyes released a wave of eye power, which formed an eye power barrier around her body. Bang! In the next second, the palm landed on Tang 13's body with the force of a mountain. After a muffled sound, the eye power barrier around Tang 13's body was shattered. Tang 13's body was flung backward, and blood sprayed out from her mouth. Seeing this, everyone's eyes widened. Excitement and ecstasy could be seen on their faces. How could the Shura race allow an outsider to be the holy demon bloodlord? Nie Tion's eyes widened, and his expression changed. Hua! Just then, Sirius Chun suddenly reached out his hand. Instantly, a powerful suction force appeared, and Tang 13's body was sucked in. Tang 13's body froze, and her body floated in midair. Everyone's eyes widened, and they were confused. They had no idea what Sirius Chun was trying to do. The holy demon blood is mine. Sirius Chun stood in the air, and his lips twitched as he spoke coldly. Chapter 31:81. Not gods will everyone looked at Tang 13, who was floating in the air. They immediately understood what Chun was trying to do. Chun wanted to take the divine demon blood by force. However, the blood of the holy demon had already fused with Tang 13. How could Sirius Chun force the blood out? Nie Tion saw this, and his face darkened. He took a step forward, ready to make a move. But at that moment, he realized that someone had locked onto him. Saint Devil Grandmaster. Nie Tion looked at Saint Devil Grandmaster. It was the Grandmaster who had locked onto him. Obviously, Saint Devil Grandmaster was warning Nie Tion not to act recklessly. For Saint Devil Grandmaster, as long as he had the Divine Demon Bloodmaster, it would be fine. But it did not matter who the Divine Demon Bloodmaster was. Tang 13, the Divine Demon Bloodmaster, was his worst choice. If Chun could really force out the Divine Demon Blood and merge with it himself, Saint Devil Grandmaster would be happy to see it happen. Nie Tion looked gloomy, but he still took a step back. He knew that if he made a move, Saint Devil Grandmaster would follow suit. So if he made a move, it would only make things more troublesome. The most important thing now was Tang 13 herself. If Sirius Chun could not force out Tang 13's holy demon blood, then the Saint Devil Grandmaster would still protect her. Nie Tion did not believe that only Sirius Chun had a way to force out Tang 13's blood. After all, Tang 13 had already merged with the divine demon blood. It would not be easy to force it out. At that moment, Tang 13's body was covered in blood. She was in a coma, quietly lying in the air. Face Sirius Chun sneered. Immediately after, strange runes began to emerge from his body. The aura of the runes was very special. They were like icicles that revolved around Chun Yu's body, making him look cold and evil. Nie Tion looked at Chun and couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. That strange rune aura gave him a very special feeling. It even caused a certain hidden power in his body to become slightly restless. The others looked at the non-silver wolf Chun in confusion, not knowing what kind of power that icicle rune was. How is this possible? Saint Devil Grandmaster's face stiffened. He screamed in horror, as if he had seen something very scary. He had never imagined that Fei Sirius Chun was the legendary Fei Tion Fate. Not Heavens was also one of the Azura 5 restrictions, the strongest bloodline power of the Azura clan. To be more precise, the Mandate of Heaven was the head of the Azura 5 forbidden techniques. The strongest of the 5 Azura restrictions, the strongest bloodline of the Azura tribe. No one could compare. The Saint Devil Grandmaster didn't realize that it was not Sirius Chen's destiny. This is... At the same time, the Ghost Emperor's voice rang out, filled with incomparable shock. His eyes trembled violently, and he couldn't even finish his sentence. Nye Tian frowned and asked anxiously, "Ghost Emperor, what did you find?" The Ghost Emperor was in a daze for a few seconds before he reacted and exclaimed, "This brat actually has a faux fate, not the will of the heavens?" Nye Tian was stunned for a moment. His expression turned ugly, and an inexplicable sense of foreboding arose in his heart. Not the will of the heavens, one of the legendary 9 heaven-defying fate. Then the Ghost Emperor's voice rang out. "This Fei Tian Shura kid is really scary. 9 heaven-defying fate." Nye Tian was stunned again, and his face darkened. Then he thought of something and said in shock, "Could it be that Fei Sirius Chun is someone with a martial path fate?" "Yes." The Ghost Emperor's eyes narrowed, and he nodded heavily. Fate, of course, referred to the martial path fate. Fei Sirius Chun was not only someone with a martial path fate, but his fate was also one of the 9 heaven-defying fate, the Fei Tian fate. Martial path fate horoscope and heavenly path soul horoscope represented a martial artist's greatest talent. Among the martial path fate, there were 9 heaven-defying fate, which referred to the 9 strongest martial path fate. Those who had such a fate were extremely talented in martial path, and they were the true geniuses of the heavens. No wonder Fei Sirius Chun could enter the realm of annihilation in the demonic lake. In fact, Nye Tian's martial path fate was even more powerful. His fate was not only one of the 9 heaven-defying fate, but also the head of the 9 heaven-defying fate. However, Nye Tian didn't know this. He only knew that the fate was very powerful. This Crown Prince wants to see if your martial body can withstand the pressure of the Fei Tian fate. At this time, Fei Sirius Chun roared, and the Fei Tian fate marks on his body moved, and they directly enveloped Tang 13. "Oh no!" Seeing this, the Ghost Emperor cried out in shock, and his eyes trembled. "Ghost Emperor, is the Fei Tian fate mark that scary?" Nye Tian asked anxiously. His expression changed when he heard the Ghost Emperor's voice. This emperor didn't expect this Shura kid to have cultivated his martial path fate to the realm of life marks. The Ghost Emperor's eyes trembled, and he said in a deep voice, "This time, your friend is in danger." "Realm of life marks?" Nye Tian was stunned, and he couldn't help but frown, his face full of doubt. From the Ghost Emperor's words, the martial path fate seemed to be some kind of power that could be cultivated, and there were even different realms. The martial path fate and the heavenly path soul are actually a special kind of bloodline power. However, this kind of bloodline power can only be cultivated with a special method. The Ghost Emperor knew what Nye Tian was confused about, and he said, "This Shura kid's Fei Tian fate has already cultivated the Fei Tian fate, and this kind of power can suppress a cultivator's martial body. So that's how it is." Nye Tian's eyes darkened, and a strange expression appeared on his face. He didn't expect that the so-called martial path fate and heavenly path soul were actually a kind of bloodline power. No wonder when the heaven-punishing devil seal was transferred into Cher's body, the heaven-punishing devil seal was awakened, and the heaven-punishing devil seal was suppressed. It seemed like both the martial path fate and heavenly path soul were extremely terrifying bloodline powers. Even though Nye Tian's fate was forbidden by the fiend gods and the devils, he hadn't practiced it yet. At that moment, the Fei Tian fate mark was like a whirlpool, wrapping around Tang 13's body, and a terrifying pressure was suppressing his martial body. Nye Tian could feel that Tang 13's blood chi, yuan meridians, and bloodline power were becoming restless, as if they were about to boil. Damn it! At that moment, Nye Tian finally realized how terrifying the Fei Tian fate mark was. If this continued, Fei Tian Lang Chun could really force the holy demon blood out of Tang 13's body. This Fei Tian Lang Chun is indeed scary. He actually cultivated the Fei Tian Lang Chen's holy demon blood. The Saint Devil Grandmaster's eyes were burning with excitement. If he had to choose, he would choose Fei Tianlang Chun to be the holy demon bloodlord without hesitation. It seemed like Fei Tianlang Chun could force the holy demon blood out, and it was only a matter of time. Holy demon blood, come out. After a while, Fei Tianlang Chun's eyes flickered, and he shouted. Tang 13's body suddenly trembled, and the holy demon blood that had already melted into her meridians became restless, and it started to gather. Seeing this, Nie Tian frowned, and his eyes trembled. Fei Tianlang Chun was really going to force the holy demon blood out. The Fei Tianlang Chun was indeed terrifying. Chapter 3182. Nie Tian immediately sensed the strange energy inside Tang 13's body. His expression changed as he exclaimed in surprise. Holy demon mark. Just then, Emperor Ghost suddenly spoke. He was so shocked that his voice turned sharp. He felt a familiar presence inside Tang 13's body. It was the presence of the holy demon mark. When Tang 13 was at the demon lake, the eyes of the ghost merged with the holy demon mark. However, after the holy demon mark entered the ghost eye, it seemed to have disappeared. It did not affect Tang 13 much. Emperor Ghost speculated that the holy demon mark might have caused the eyes of the ghost eye to change. That was why Tang 13 could successfully merge with the holy demon mark. At this moment, the aura of the holy demon annihilation seal appeared once again. Saint Devil Destruction Print. Almost at the same time, Saint Devil Grandmaster's eyes widened. He was shocked, and his face was stiff. He did not expect that the power of the holy demon mark would appear inside Tang 13's body. When he was observing Tang 13, he already felt strange. With Tang 13's capabilities, she should not have been able to merge with the holy demon mark. Now that the holy demon mark was awakening, nobody knew what would happen. The presence of the holy demon mark. In the sky, Fei Sirius Chun felt the strange presence. His face changed color, and he shouted, Hum! In the next second, Tang 13's body quivered. Her spiritual energy shot up into the sky. Waves of destructive energy were violent and violent. They broke through the non-Grandal life mark. How is this possible? This sudden scene caused Chen's eyes to tremble as he exclaimed in shock. His non-destiny mark was so powerful. It was broken by the holy demon mark. This was something he did not expect. But the next second, something even more horrifying happened. Tang 13's figure shuddered once again as a stronger sacred demonic destruction force appeared, forming a dark ripple in the air. Everyone was so shocked by the scene in the sky that their eyes trembled and they cried out in alarm. The dark ripple was extremely powerful. It was as if it contained the power to destroy the world. Everywhere it went, the space shook as if it was about to collapse. Fei Sirius Chun felt the danger and quickly retreated. However, he was still one step too late. Bang! The speed of the black ripples was extremely fast, arriving in the blink of an eye. With a muffled sound, Fei Sirius Chun was sent flying. Then, the dark ripples spread out in all directions. At this moment, everyone felt an extremely terrifying pressure. Moreover, this pressure caused everyone to feel their blood chi becoming restless and unstable. It was like the pressure from the demonic Saint Lake. Many people vomited blood on the spot, their faces as pale as paper. Nie Tian frowned and locked his gaze on a Tang 13. He was extremely nervous. He had the feeling that something terrifying was happening to Tang 13. Saint Devil Grandmaster was also staring at Tang 13. His eyes were shaking, as if he was thinking about whether what he did was right or wrong. Damn it! At the same time, Fei Sirius Chun steadied himself and let out a low roar. He was enraged, and like a ferocious beast, his aura surged violently. That ripple of darkness only pushed him back, but it didn't do much damage to him. Since I can't get the blood of the demonic saint, then I will kill you. In the next moment, Fei Sirius Chen's eyes widened. His gaze turned extremely ferocious as he roared like thunder. His silhouette moved, and he punched out. A terrifying amount of energy rolled out of his palm and headed towards Tang 13. Fei Serious Chin's destiny mark was broken. It was destined that he would not be able to get the blood of the demonic saint out. Therefore, he had to kill Tang 13. Tang 13. Seeing this, Tang Yuyu's beautiful eyes widened as she shouted. Her body moved in an instant, and she flew up into the sky. On the other side, Nie Tian moved as well. A pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back. Like an arrow, he dashed towards Tang 13. Tang Yuyu and Tang 13 attacked at the same time. However, their speed was not fast enough. Boom! High up in the sky, the shadow of the palm slammed down like a mountain. The sky and earth shook, and the void rumbled. Bang! In the next moment, the shadow of the palm landed on Tang 13's body. Like a kite with a broken string, Tang 13 was flung backwards, drawing a bloody arc in the sky. Tang 13. Seeing this, Nie Tian's eyes widened. The wings on his back fluttered, and he dashed forward, catching Tang 13 in his arms. Nie Tian's body was hit by the impact. He staggered back 10 meters before regaining his balance. His eyes widened as he sensed Tang 13's aura. His expression changed, and he stood there in shock. Tang 13's entire body was covered in blood. His body was covered in wounds, and his flesh was a mess. His breathing was weak, and he was on the verge of death. To make matters worse, his meridians were all destroyed. Even his eyes were broken. Fei Serious Chin's attack had completely crippled Tang 13. Tang 13. At that moment, Tang Yu arrived. The moment she saw Tang 13, her eyes widened, and tears flowed down her cheeks. Nie Tian reacted and immediately unleashed the energy of the Lei's source in an attempt to stabilize Tang 13's breathing. However, after the energy of the Lei's source entered Tang 13's body, there was no reaction at all. Nie Tian did not give up. He unleashed the energy of the Lei's source even more fervently. In the blink of an eye, his forehead was covered with sweat. Nie Tian. Ghost Emperor saw that Nie Tian was on the verge of losing his mind, so he couldn't help but open his mouth. However, he couldn't finish his sentence. Tang 13's breathing was very weak. There was no hope for him. Ha ha! What holy demon blood master! He's nothing. Take my attack head on, and you will die for sure. At that moment, Fei Serious Chin's voice was heard. He was laughing arrogantly. Everyone looked at Fei Serious Chun with fear in their eyes. The Grand Master of the Saint Devil sect was stunned. He didn't expect things to turn out this way. He could only watch as the holy demon blood Kaiser died in front of him. Fei Serious Chun. Nie Tian's pupils constricted as he jerked his head up. His eyes were bloodshot, and his killing intent had condensed into a solid form. Like a sharp blade, he called out Chun Fei's name one word at a time. Ghost Huang Tian, you want to avenge him? Then do it. Fei Serious Chun was not afraid at all. Instead, he became even more arrogant. He stared at Nie Tian with murderous intent. Nie Tian's eyes flickered as he slowly rose to his feet and handed Tang 13 over to Tang Yuyu. Then, with each step he took, his killing intent growing stronger and stronger. You're just a Rakshasa rebel. I'm not afraid of you. Fei Serious Chun stared at Nie Tian. His aura skyrocketed. Chapter 3183. Green Dragon Roar. Nie Tian's eyes were bloodshot. His entire body was filled with murderous intent. He was like a ferocious beast that had been imprisoned for countless years and was just released from the cage. He was about to devour someone. To him, Tang 13 was more than just Tang Hao's grandson. Nie Tian saw Tang 13 as a true friend, a friend that he could walk with until the end of his life. Tang 13's talent in martial arts was far beyond Tang Hao's. Nie Tian knew this very well. Right now, he was looking at Tang 13's murderer. How could he control the anger in his heart? Chun, who wasn't Heavenly Wolf, couldn't help but feel a strong sense of threat from Nie Tian's eyes, causing him to gasp in astonishment. He could not believe that he, a rank 9 pseudo-divinity, could feel threatened by a rank 3 pseudo-divinity. Illusion. It must be an illusion. The next moment, Not Chun calmed down and said in his mind. However, the more he said that, the more uneasy he felt. Not Chun, you are dead. Nietion walked forward step by step. His aura was getting stronger and stronger, and a murderous intent in his eyes was getting stronger and stronger. Seeing Nietion walking straight towards Tang 13, people could not help but tremble, and their expressions became even weirder. What is this kid doing? Is he crazy? He is walking straight towards Tang 13. Is he looking for death? What is the relationship between him and the holy demon Bloodmaster? Why is he so angry? The crowd was discussing, and the way they looked at Nietion was getting weirder and weirder. What kind of power is inside his body? How can it be so strong? Saint Demon Grandmaster looked at Nietion, and he could feel that there was a power inside Nietion's body that was growing crazily. He could not help but be shocked. Ghost Huang Tian, you are looking for death. Chun, who wasn't serious, allowed a low growl when he saw Nietion walking over. However, his eyes were trembling, and he was clearly afraid. You are the one who should die, Nie Tianling said coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Damn it! Face Serious Chin's eyes flickered as he roared in a low voice. He directly blasted out with his palm as a tyrannical palm silhouette blasted out, suppressing the surrounding space as it rumbled towards Nietion. In an instant, the void trembled. It was as if the world was about to be torn apart. At this moment, the eyes of the crowd trembled as they stared fixedly at Nietion. They were all anticipating the scene of Nietion being killed by a single palm strike. Boom! But at this time, Nietion's body shook and a vast and boundless power of stars appeared, instantly condensing into star runes in the air and enveloping Nietion's body. At this moment, a terrifying palm shadow descended and landed directly on Nietion's body. Roar! At the same time, the star runes around Nietion actually transformed into a raging dragon. With a roar, its aura soared into the sky, and the dragon's roar shook heaven and earth. Bang! The moment the dragon soared into the sky, the palm shadow collapsed and turned into a violent force that impacted the void. Under the impact of the dragon's might, Face Serious Chin's figure could not help but retreat 100 meters. Everyone's eyes widened as they saw a gigantic dragon that was over 10,000 meters long coiled up in the sky. Its eyes were like the sun and moon, but they were emitting a sharp and cold light as it stared at Chun. This! The crowd gasped. They could not believe their eyes. It was hard to imagine that Nietion could release such a terrifying power. Is this the power of the black tortoise and the true martial water god? At this time, someone could feel that the dragon's aura was somewhat similar to that of the black tortoise and the true martial water god. The others were dumbfounded. They did not know what was going on. Previously, Nietion had integrated the power of the black tortoise and the true martial water god, and he had already used them. Why would he release a dragon with the same aura as the black tortoise and the true martial water god? At this moment, what Nietion released was the Azure Dragon Astral Soul. He had to kill Fei Serious Chun, so he would not be stingy with the Azure Dragon Astral Soul. Roar! At this time, the Azure Dragon roared again. The dragon's roar shook the void, and the dragon's might shook the world. How is this possible? Face Serious Chun was shocked. He could not believe his eyes. At this moment, he finally understood how terrifying Nietion was. Go to hell. Nietion let out a low roar. The Azure Dragon tumbled out of the void and charged towards Chun, who was not Heavenly Wolf. Boom! 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 Face Serious Chun was shocked. He immediately reacted and attacked again. Waves of violent force rushed out, but the Azure Dragon Astral Soul shattered them. The Rakshasa Deacon estimated that Nietion's Azure Dragon Astral Soul was enough to fight against a 9th stage pseudo-sage. However, the power displayed by the Azure Dragon Astral Soul had exceeded the Rakshasa Deacon's expectations. Nietion's control over the astral runes was stronger than the Rakshasa Deacon had imagined. Boom! The next moment, Face Serious Chun felt an inundating pressure. His face sank, and despair was written all over it. I admit defeat. In an instant, he cried out in alarm. It's too late. The corner of Nye Tion's mouth twitched. The killing intent in his eyes intensified. Roar! The azure dragon roared angrily once again. Its massive body swooped down, pouncing at Fei Sirius Chun. Fei Sirius Chun did not even have the time to let out a final scream before his body was drowned by the violent force. Not even his bones were left. A ninth-stage pseudo-sage, Fei Sirius Chun, the crown prince of the Heaven Azura race, the warrior with the 9 defying heavenly mandate, was dead. Never in his wildest dreams did he imagine that he would die in such a manner at the hands of Nye Tion. Everyone's eyes trembled as their expressions turned dull. There was dead silence. Nye Tion took a step forward and stood on the azure dragon. His cold eyes locked onto Enwufeng. After being saved by Tang 13, Enwufeng had already retreated to the side. What do you want? Enwufeng felt a chill down his spine when he was targeted by Nye Tion. He spoke in a trembling voice, and his teeth were chattering. Hand of destruction. The corner of Nye Tion's mouth twitched as he uttered those words coldly. Enwufeng's eyes flickered. He took out the hand of destruction and threw it to Nye Tion. He had seen Nye Tion kill Fei Sirius Chun in such a dominating manner. Of course, he did not dare to disobey. If he did not hand over the hand of destruction, Nye Tion would definitely kill him. Nye Tion got the hand of destruction. The azure dragon beneath his feet turned into star runes and disappeared. Then, he moved and returned to Tang 13's side. At the same time, the Saint Demon Patriarch was also by Tang 13's side. The Saint Demon Patriarch looked at Nye Tion and shook his head. He looked sorrowful. He had already checked Tang 13's meridians and meridians. She was definitely dead. If he had known this would happen, he would definitely have stopped Fei Sirius Chun. But now it was all too late. Nye Tion ignored the Saint Demon Patriarch and looked at Tang 13 with a gloomy gaze. He could feel the weak aura of Tang 13 slowly disappearing. His face was so gloomy that it looked like it was bleeding. His eyes were filled with anger. At this moment, the Ghost Emperor seemed to realize something, and thus exclaimed, Nye Tion, there's only one way to save Tang 13. Chapter 3184. Forbidden Star Soul. Forbidden Star Soul. Nye Tion and Ghost King thought of a way to save Tang 13 at the same time. Forbidden Star Soul. Forbidden Star Soul contained unimaginable power. The scariest thing about Forbidden Star Soul was that it could bring a warrior back to life. Shadow Moon Greedy Wolf and Shadow Flame Legion Breaker had already proven this point. Tang 13 was on the verge of death. She was on her last breath. The only way to save him was to merge with the Forbidden Star Soul and become a Star Lord. Nye Tion looked at Tang 13, wondering if he wanted to become a Star Soul. But now is not the time to think about these things. The most important thing now was to save Tang 13's life. If Tang 13 did not want to be a Star Lord, Nye Tion would find a way to help him move the Forbidden Star Soul. After all, being a Star Lord represented a status and a responsibility. The one who became a Star Lord had to help Star Saint Master rebuild the Star Saint world. I want to take him to the 10 Directions territory. Without hesitation, Nye Tion looked at the Saint Devil Grand Ancestor and said in a deep voice, Leave. Saint Devil Grand Master was shocked. He pointed at Tang 13 and said, He has the holy demon blood in him, and he is dying. Do you think I will let you take him away? He will not die. I will save him. Nye Tion looked the same. He stared at Saint Devil Grand Master and said, If you do not want him to die, let me take him away. Saint Devil Grand Master stared at Nye Tion with a gloomy face. He did not speak for a long time. He was worried that Nye Tion wanted to take Tang 13 away because he wanted the holy demon blood. Grandmaster, forgive me for being straightforward. I do not care about the holy demon blood. Nye Tion knew what Saint Devil Grand Master was thinking, so he said it directly. Huh? Saint Devil Grand Master's face darkened. He did not expect Nye Tion to say that. Nye Tion was right. He did not want the holy demon blood. The holy demon blood was indeed powerful, but Nye Tion believed that the Star Origin Stone was even more powerful. He already had the Star Essence Stone, so he wouldn't have any designs on the blood of the holy demon. Old Ancestor, You should be able to tell that there's something even stronger than the holy demon blood in my body. Nietian saw the Saint Devil Grand Master was not talking, so he said in a deep voice, Tang 13 is my friend. I will not let him die. Saint Devil Grand Master looked even gloomier. He was thinking. He could tell that Nietian was a man who valued friendship and friendship. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so angry when Tang 13 was injured by Chun Fei. However, the holy demon blood was far too important. It was even related to the future of the 5 Azura tribes, so they definitely couldn't act on impulse. Grandmaster, if you keep thinking about it, Tang 13 will die. Nietian looked at Saint Devil Grandmaster and said. Saint Devil Grandmaster stared at Nietian for a long time and finally nodded. Tang Yuyu, let's go. Nietian looked at Tang Yuyu and nodded. At this moment, Saint Devil Grandmaster waved his hand. The space above the sky trembled, and a space crack appeared. Enter this space crack, and you can go back to Shifeng territory. Saint Devil Grandmaster looked at Nietian and nodded. Thank you. Nietian nodded and called you Luo and the others over. At that moment, a thought occurred to Nietian, and he said with a grim look in his eyes, Patriarch, there's one more thing I need your help with. What is it? Saint Devil Grandmaster was shocked. He didn't expect Nietian to ask for his help. I need one thing, Shura Bloodstone. Nietian frowned and said. Shura Bloodstone was the main thing of Rakshasa Temple. It was used to open the Holy Demon Book. Saint Devil Grand Master frowned, hesitated, and then nodded. He took out a Shura Bloodstone and gave it to Nietian. Since he was willing to let Nietian take away the demonic saint blood, the Azura Bloodstones were nothing to him. Then, under the watchful eyes of countless people, Nietian and the others entered the space crack and disappeared. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Saint Devil Grandmaster to let Nietian and the others go like that. Saint Devil Grand Master frowned, and his eyes looked complicated. He didn't know whether it was right or wrong to let Nietian and the others go. I hope I didn't choose the wrong person. Saint Devil Grand Master thought to himself. At the same time, Shifeng territory, Rakshasa Temple, Nietian and the others appeared in the void, all of them looking very nervous. Nietian. At this time, Rakshasa Temple leader and Rakshasa Temple supervisor, who had been waiting here, saw Nietian and the others and shouted at the same time. They were shocked and then realized something was wrong. Why did you Luo and the others come back? You Luo and the others were the givers. Shouldn't they be divided by the other 4 races? What was even more strange was that there were 2 unfamiliar faces. They should be from the other Shura race. The first reaction of Rakshasa Temple leader and Rakshasa Temple supervisor was that something bad had happened. Nietian, what's going on? The Rakshasa Temple superintendent stepped forward and asked anxiously. Temple leader, Temple supervisor, I don't have time to explain. Saving people is more important. Nietian saw Rakshasa Temple supervisor and calmed down. He came back to Shifeng territory for Rakshasa Temple supervisor. He didn't know how to help Tang 13 merge with the Forbidden Star Soul. Huh? The Rakshasa Temple supervisor was stunned. He then noticed Tang 13 and Desolate Ghost. His expression changed. Why are they so heavily injured? Tang 13 was on the verge of death. The only reason she could hold on until now was because of Nietian's continuous transfer of energy from the Earth Vein source. Although Desolate Ghost's life wasn't in danger, his hand of destruction was broken and all his Yuan meridians were destroyed. He was now a cripple, boundless. The Rakshasa Temple leader felt Desolate Ghost's injuries and screamed in agony. Nietian glanced at the Rakshasa Temple leader and could only put the latter to one side. He then looked at the Rakshasa Temple supervisor and pointed at Tang 13. I want to save him. The Rakshasa Temple supervisor's expression changed. He already knew Tang 13's condition and understood Nietian's meaning. Tang 13 could only be saved by merging with the Forbidden Star Soul. But to merge with the Forbidden Star Soul, Nietian had to help. And Nietian's strength was too weak. Forcefully helping Tang 13 fuse with the Astral Soul was too dangerous for Nietian. I must save him, no matter what price I have to pay. Nyetian could see the hesitation of the Rakshasa temple supervisor. He spoke again, his eyes filled with determination. Nyetian, follow me. The Rakshasa temple supervisor thought for a long time before nodding his head. Next, the group left the Rakshasa ancestral land. On the way, the Rakshasa temple supervisor helped Tang 13 to stabilize her aura. Very quickly, the group returned to the Rakshasa temple. The Rakshasa temple supervisor asked Nyetian to bring Tang 13 and Desolate Ghost to his cultivation location. The Rakshasa temple leader and the rest waited outside. Within the cultivation space, Nyetian looked at the Rakshasa temple supervisor and couldn't help but feel puzzled. The person he wanted to save was Tang 13. Why did the Rakshasa temple supervisor ask him to bring Desolate Ghost along? Nyetian, release your astral soul original tome. I want to test what kind of astral soul is suitable for the two of them. At this moment, the Rakshasa temple supervisor spoke in a heavy tone. When Nyetian heard the words of the Rakshasa temple supervisor, he couldn't help but be stunned. After a moment, he understood and his expression stiffened. Chapter 3185. Chapter 3180. Astral Soul Distribution. Nyetian understood the Rakshasa palace's intention, and his expression changed slightly. If Tang 13 and the Boundless Desolate Ghost both merged forbidden astral souls, that meant that Nyetian had found two-star venerates at the same time. Furthermore, from then on, he would definitely have an unbreakable connection with Tang 13 and the Boundless Desolate Ghost. Nyetian, you already obtained the Black Tortoise Astral Soul, right? The Rakshasa Palace's supervisor asked anxiously with a frown when he saw Nyetian standing there in a daze. If Nyetian did not obtain the Black Tortoise Astral Soul, it would be problematic. I obtained it. Nyetian reacted and smiled faintly. With a thought, the original canon of astral souls appeared. As he flipped through the pages, 3 astral souls appeared. The Army Breaker Astral Soul, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul, and the Black Tortoise Astral Soul. The auras of the 3 forbidden astral souls were different. However, they were all formed from astral talisman scripts. Nyetian, do you know what the most important factor for a star venerate is? The Rakshasa Palace's supervisor asked as he sensed the auras of the 3 astral souls. I don't know. Of course, Nyetian understood that the Demon Hall elder was teaching him something. Ma Shan nodded with a serious expression. Nyetian, remember this. The most important factor for a forbidden astral soul is not the cultivator's attribute, but the cultivator's talent, perseverance, and bloodline power. The Rakshasa Palace's supervisor said seriously. The Rakshasa said solemnly, the power of the stars is the origin of power. It does not belong to the 9 elements, but it can be converted into any of the 9 elements. Hence, the forbidden astral soul has no requirements for the cultivator's attribute. However, the cultivator's talent, perseverance, and bloodline power are the most important. Even the weakest forbidden astral soul requires the cultivator to have peak talent, a strong, mysterious power, and the strongest bloodline power. If any of these conditions are not met, then this cultivator will definitely not be able to obtain a forbidden astral soul. At this point, the Rakshasa Palace's supervisor could not help but look at Tang 13 with some worry on his face. He said, I do not know how talented your friend is. Given his current situation, if his talent were slightly weaker, he would not be able to become a star venerate. Don't worry, Palace Supervisor. Tang 13's talent is above that of the Devil's Son. Moreover, when he was in the Saint Demon Secret Territory, he fused with the Saint Demon Extermination Seal and the Saint Demon Blood. Nyetian smiled faintly. He was very confident in Tang 13. Between martial artists, it was taboo to talk about who was stronger than who. Every martial artist had a competitive heart. No one was willing to admit that they were weaker than others. However, in Nyetian's eyes, Desolate Ghost talent was indeed below Tang 13's. After all, in the demonic lake, Tang 13 had entered the realm of annihilation, while the boundless Desolate Ghost had stopped at the realm of annihilation. What did you say? Hearing Nyetian's words, the the Luo Sha Temple's leader's expression froze. The way he looked at Tang 13 was filled with surprise and fear. Initially, what he was most worried about was that Tang 13's talent wasn't high enough, and that an accident might occur during the fusion of the forbidden astral soul. However, he didn't expect Tang 13's talent to be above that of the boundless desolate ghost. The boundless desolate ghost could be said to be the strongest genius of the Luo Sha tribe. He could even be said to be the #1 genius of the Luo Sha tribe in millions of years. One had to know that the Luo Sha tribe had been exiled to the Ten Directions domain for countless years. The only person who had awakened the Azura forbidden bloodline was the boundless desolate ghost. The fact that Tang 13's talent was above that of the boundless desolate ghost surprised the Luo Sha Temple's leader. What was even more unexpected was that Tang 13 had fused with the Saint Demon Extermination Seal and a legendary Saint Demon Blood. Didn't that mean that Tang 13 would become the Saint Demon Blood Lord in the future? The Luo Sha Temple's leader had been in the Ten Directions Luo Sha Temple for hundreds of thousands of years. Of course, he knew the legend of the Saint Demon Blood. Tang 13 was so strong that he had never expected her to be. With a faint smile, Nie Tian briefly explained Tang 13's identity to Nie Tian. At the end, he emphasized, even though Tang 13 is from the lowest plane of existence, his cultivation talent is definitely among the top 3 among all the cultivators I've ever met. I believe you. The Luo Sha Temple's leader's eyes narrowed as he said in a heavy tone. To be able to obtain the recognition of the Saint Demon Blood, it was impossible for his talent to be weak. After a moment, the Luo Sha Temple's leader's lips curled up in a smile as he said, among the 4 deity astral souls, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul is for offense, the Black Tortoise Astral Soul is for defense, and the Boundless Desolate Hand of Destruction. If he can fuse with the Azure Dragon Astral Soul, his future achievements would be limitless. Lord Luo Sha, you wish for the Devil's Son to fuse with the Azure Dragon Astral Soul? Nie Tian frowned as he looked at the Luo Sha Temple's leader. Currently, out of the 3 forbidden astral souls, only the Azure Dragon and Black Tortoise were complete. The Army Destroyer was one of the 3 physiques of the Wolf Destroyer, Kill Destroyer, and was incomplete. If the Boundless Desolate Ghost fused with the Azure Dragon Astral Soul, then Tang 13 could only fuse with the Black Tortoise. Amicham, the Luo Sha Temple's leader nodded his head as he continued. The Boundless Desolate Hand of Destruction is broken. While fusing with the Azure Dragon Astral Soul, we can use the Astral Rune to help him reattach his arm. At the same time, we can also repair the shattered Yuan meridians in his body. Amicham, Nie Tian lightly nodded his head. He believed that the Luo Sha Temple's leader's choice was the best. Nie Tian, I intend to let Tang 13 fuse with the Army Destroyer Astral Soul. At this moment, the Luo Sha Temple's leader stared at Nie Tian as he spoke in a low voice. Army Destroyer Astral Soul? Nie Tian froze. He suspected that he had heard wrongly. The Army Destroyer Astral Soul was incomplete. Why did the Luo Sha Temple's leader want Tang 13 to fuse with it? With his talent, if he doesn't fuse with the Army Destroyer Astral Soul, it would truly be a pity. The Luo Sha Temple's leader stared at Nie Tian as he spoke in a heavy tone. MHM. Nie Tian froze for a moment before he reacted. Could it be that the Army Destroyer Astral Soul is stronger than the Black Tortoise Astral Soul? The Luo Sha Temple's leader clearly meant that Tang 13's talent was too high and he should fuse with a stronger astral soul. However, Nie Tian felt that the Black Tortoise Astral Soul was clearly stronger than the Army Destroyer Astral Soul. Could it be that he had guessed wrongly? Nie Tian, the Black Tortoise Astral Soul is indeed stronger than the Army Destroyer Astral Soul. However, the potential of the Army Destroyer Astral Soul is even greater. Don't forget, the Army Destroyer Astral Soul is merely one of the 3 parts of the Slaughter Destroyer Wolf Astral Soul. The Luo Sha Temple's leader smiled faintly as he continued. The Army Destroyer Astral Soul is not as strong as the Black Tortoise Astral Soul. However, the complete Slaughter Destroyer Astral Soul is far stronger than the Black Tortoise Astral Soul. So that's how it is. Nietian immediately reacted, his eyes filled with joy. However, he soon thought of something and asked, does that mean that Tang 13 still needs to fuse with the 7 Slaughter astral soul and the Greedy Wolf astral soul in the future? Emichum, the Luosha temple's leader, nodded his head as he continued. The Slaughter Destroyer astral soul and the Heaven's Cursed Lone Star astral soul are known as the twin Absolute Star astral souls, while the Azure Dragon astral soul and the Black Tortoise astral soul are known as the 4 God astral souls. According to what I know, among all the forbidden astral souls, there's only one that is stronger than the Slaughter Destroyer astral soul. What astral soul? Nietian's gaze involuntarily heated as he asked curiously. Although he didn't have much understanding regarding astral souls, he still wanted to know what the Destroyer astral souls were. Chapter 3186. Astral Soul Fusion. Lonely Sky, Astral Soul, Purple Myrtle Descends. Upon hearing these words, Nietian's eyes flickered slightly, and his heart shuddered. Although he had never seen the Purple Myrtle Descends astral soul before, he felt an indescribable excitement. At this moment, he could see how terrifying the Purple Myrtle Descends astral soul was from the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor. After a while, the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor calmed down and said, let's not talk too much. Let's start helping them fuse their astral souls. Okay, Nietian nodded, looking forward to what the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor would do next. Nietian, only the Starry Sky Holy Lord can help a astral lord fuse a forbidden astral soul. However, you are too weak now, so I will temporarily lend my strength to you, the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor said as he looked at Nietian. Lend it to me? Nietian was stunned and frowned. He did not understand what the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor meant. Relax and release Starry Sky Eyes. Leave the rest to me, the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor said in a deep voice. Nietian nodded. Yeah. With a thought, he released the Starry Sky Eye. Previously, the Rakshasa Hall supervisor had mentioned Starry Sky Eyes to Nietian. Now that he asked Nietian to release Starry Sky Eyes, it proved that he was the second astral envoy. After the Starry Sky Eyes appeared, it merged with Nietian's eyes. However, after Nietian's battle prowess increased, and he awakened the demonic eye and heavenly punishment, he no longer used Starry Sky Eyes. He did not know why the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor wanted him to release Starry Sky Eyes. After a while, Starry Sky Eyes appeared and floated in the air. It was dazzling and dazzling. When the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor saw Starry Sky Eyes, his eyes trembled with excitement and passion. It had been millions of years. How could he not be excited to see Starry Sky Eyes again? After a while, the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor calmed down and slowly released his strength into Starry Sky Eyes. When Nietian saw this scene, he could not help but frown. He did not expect the Rakshasa temple to be able to integrate its power into the Starry Sky Eye. He could sense that the aura of the Starry Sky Eye was becoming stronger and stronger. The enormous power seemed to be about to burst the Starry Sky Eye. Very quickly, beads of sweat appeared on the forehead of the Rakshasa Hall's supervisor, and his face became much paler. That's enough. After a long time, the Rakshasa temple lord stopped releasing his power and let out a long breath. He nodded slightly and said, Nietian, withdraw your Starry Sky Eyes now. Nietian's eyes flickered. He immediately understood that the Rakshasa Hall master was lending him power through the Starry Sky Eyes. Taking a deep breath, Nietian began to absorb the Starry Sky Eyes. Boom! The moment the eye of the Starry Sky returned, Nietian's entire body surged with a terrifying aura. It was extremely huge, and the surrounding space trembled. At this moment, Nietian felt that every inch of his flesh and blood contained an extremely terrifying power. His entire body felt like it was about to explode. He did not expect that the Starry Sky Eyes would actually contain such a terrifying power. Although his current aura could not be compared to when he released the Black Tortoise astral soul, it was not far from it. Nietian, start to activate your forbidden astral soul from the original opus of astral souls and integrate it into their bodies. The Rakshasa Temple Lord's face was pale as he looked at Nietian and said in a deep voice, "Okay," Nietian replied. With a thought, he began to activate the Azure Dragon Astral Soul and the Army Destroyer Astral Soul, pulling them out from the original opus of Astral Souls. However, he soon discovered that this was not an easy task. In just a few moments, his face was covered with beads of sweat. Nietian, the original opus of Astral Souls, is a kind of imprisonment for the Forbidden Astral Soul. If you want to release the Forbidden Astral Soul, you have to break this imprisonment. Carefully feel the aura of the original opus of Astral Souls. Feel every strand of energy within it. The Rakshasa Temple Lord frowned. His deep voice was like a warning to the world. "Okay." Nietian nodded his head and relaxed his entire body. He began to carefully feel the aura of the original opus of Astral Souls. He was too anxious just now and had wasted some time. The Rakshasa Temple Lord looked at Nietian, his eyes trembling slightly. It was obvious that he was extremely nervous. "It's loosened." After a long time, Nietian's eyes trembled as he exclaimed in excitement. As the sound of his voice faded, rays of starlight gushed out from the original opus of Astral Souls, condensing into 2 starlight vortexes in the air. How powerful! The eyes of the Rakshasa Temple Lord trembled involuntarily when he saw this scene. He didn't expect that Nietian's comprehension would be so strong, to be able to release a forbidden astral soul so quickly. Once a forbidden astral soul entered the original opus of Astral Souls, it was equivalent to being sealed within. Only after experiencing extreme stimulation could the forbidden astral soul be released. With Nietian's current strength, being able to release his astral soul in such a short period of time was beyond the expectations of the Rakshasa Temple Lord. "Nietian, quickly merge your astral souls into their bodies." The eyes of the Rakshasa Temple Lord trembled as he shouted excitedly. "Okay," Nietian replied, his eyes filled with excitement. With a thought, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul and the Army Destroyer Astral Soul flew towards the Desolate Ghost and Tang 13 respectively. Following which, under Nietian's control, the Azure Dragon Astral Soul and the Army Destroyer Astral Soul slowly merged into the bodies of the Desolate Ghost and Tang 13. This future Astral Saint Lord is too terrifying. The eyes of the Rakshasa Temple Lord trembled involuntarily as he witnessed this scene, his heart filled with shock. Nietian's performance had exceeded his expectations. The fusion of astral souls was actually not a difficult task, but it required a large amount of energy. Originally, with Nietian's strength, it was impossible for him to fuse astral souls. At this moment, he was borrowing the strength of the Rakshasa Temple Lord to barely begin the fusion of the forbidden astral souls. Although Nietian's strength was not strong, his control over his strength had reached an unimaginable level. One must know that at this moment, he was not using his own strength, but the strength of the Rakshasa Temple Lord. However, his control over his strength was as though he was using his own strength, causing the Rakshasa Temple Lord to sigh in admiration. Following which, everything proceeded smoothly. The Azure Dragon Astral Soul and the Army Destroyer Astral Soul slowly merged with the Desolate Ghost and Tang 13. Nietian, the martial physiques of Tang 13 and Desolate Ghost are too weak. There are too many things to take note of when fusing astral souls. You have to take it slow. The Rakshasa Temple Lord was worried that Nietian would be anxious, hence he advised. The corners of Nietian's mouth twitched as he nodded his head. At the same time, Tang 13 and the Desolate Ghost accepted the power of the forbidden astral souls. Their martial physiques slowly recovered, and their damaged yuan meridians and meridians slowly healed. This was especially so for Tang 13. Her aura quickly stabilized and became increasingly stronger. One of the twin absolutes, the Killing Wolf Astral Monarch, is actually the future demonic Saint Blood Sovereign. This will be a great help to the reconstruction of the Astral Saint world in the future. The Rakshasa Temple Lord stared at Tang 13 as his lips curled up uncontrollably. There was no absolute dependence between the astral origin stones and the forbidden astral souls. However, there was an inseparable connection between the astral Saint Lord and the astral monarch. Chapter 3187. Astral Soul Imprint in the blink of an eye. 3 days passed. In the cultivation space, Nietion let out a long breath. His face was as pale as paper, looking extremely unsightly. After 3 days, he finally succeeded in merging the Azure Dragon Astral Soul and the Army Destroyer Astral Soul with Tang 13 and Desolate Ghost. At this moment, the Desolate Ghost and Tang 13 were lying quietly. Their auras were stable, and the injuries of their martial physiques had completely healed. Even the Desolate Ghost's damaged martial Tao foundation had been completely restored by the Forbidden Astral Soul. After the Forbidden Astral Soul merged with the Cultivator, it would become one with the Cultivator. As the Rakshasa Hall Elder said, as long as the Astral Soul was not destroyed, the Astral Venerate would not die. Nietan, they have completely merged the Forbidden Astral Soul and become Astral Venerates. The Rakshasa Hall Elder looked at Nietion, his eyes burning with excitement. He was even more excited than Nietion. Lord Temple Elder, when will they wake up? Nietion took a deep breath. After consuming a few divine pills, his complexion improved slightly. However, his body was still very fatigued. He asked in a heavy voice, "It'll take about a month." The Rakshasa Hall Elder nodded. He then looked at Nietion and said, "Nietion, merging the astral souls exhausted too much energy. You are now both mentally and physically exhausted, and your martial physique has suffered a great blow. Rest well for the next month. Do not leave the 10 directions, Rakshasa Hall for now." "All right." Nietion nodded slightly. He could feel that his martial physique was very fatigued and needed a good rest. However, he immediately discovered that the Rakshasa Hall Elder's aura had weakened significantly. It was very strange. Nietion, when I merged my energy into the starry sky eyes, I damaged my martial Tao foundation. Right now, I only have the strength of a rank 1 false sage. The Rakshasa Hall Elder saw Nietion's doubts and shook his head with a bitter smile. Nietion was stunned. He did not expect the earlier incident to affect the Rakshasa Hall Elder so much. "Don't worry. When you return the starry sky eyes to me, my strength will naturally recover, and I will definitely be stronger than before." The Rakshasa Temple Lord laughed and said, "I will be staying in the Rakshasa Temple for a period of time. There will be no danger." Nietion nodded and didn't say anything else. Next, Nietion rested in the cultivation space. Soon a month had passed. Inside the cultivation space, Tang 13 and the boundless Desolate Ghost woke up at the same time. "Ghost Desolation 13, how do you feel?" Nietion took a step forward and asked with blazing eyes. At this moment, his martial body had completely recovered, and his strength had increased as well. He seemed to be showing signs of breaking through to rank 4 pseudo-sage. Nietion, Tang 13 and Desolate Ghost stared at Nietion at the same time. Their eyes were shaking, as if they couldn't believe that they were still alive. After a while, the two of them calmed down and began to inspect their bodies. Tang 13's eyes trembled as he stood rooted to the ground. Not only did his martial body recover completely, his strength had also increased to the 7th rank pseudo-holiness. Desolate Ghost was also astonished. His eyes trembled with disbelief. At this moment, Desolate Ghost was already a rank 9 pseudo-sage expert. His strength had also increased by 2 ranks. After the two of them merged their astral souls, it wasn't strange for them to have a breakthrough in their strength. "Teacher, why do I feel that there's an aura in my body? It seems to be connected to Nietion." At this moment, Desolate Ghost seemed to have discovered something. He stared at the Luosha Hall's supervisor in shock. His eyes trembled, and he couldn't speak. He felt that there was an aura in his body that was connected to Nietion. This feeling of connection was similar to the resonance of bloodlines. However, it was even deeper than that. It was a resonance that reached deep into the soul. It's an astral soul imprint. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor smiled and said, Nietion helped you merge your Azure Dragon astral soul. At the same time, he also left an astral soul imprint in your body. Astral soul imprint? Desolate Ghost was stunned. He didn't understand. Nietion was also stunned. He couldn't help but look at the Luo Sha Hall's supervisor. The essence of an astral soul imprint is a kind of soul resonance. With this kind of resonance, even if the two of you are separated by thousands of miles, you will still be able to sense each other's existence. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor nodded and explained. This, Nietion and Desolate Ghost's expressions froze. They were momentarily speechless. Nietion didn't expect that there would be such a connection between the Astral Lord and the Astral Lord. Strange. Why can't I feel the aura of an astral soul imprint in my body? At this moment, Tang 13 suddenly stepped forward and asked with a puzzled look on her face. She specially probed and didn't feel any resonance from Nietion's body. You merged with the army destroyer astral soul. It isn't a complete forbidden astral soul. Hence, the aura of the astral soul imprint is very weak. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor smiled and said, when you merge with the complete slaughter wolf astral soul, the aura of the astral soul imprint will be even stronger than Desolate Ghost's. Tang 13's face darkened. She was speechless. You guys are still very weak. You basically have no control over the astral soul imprint. When you guys are strong enough, you can actually control the aura of the astral soul imprint. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor could tell what Tang 13 was thinking. Oh, Tang 13 nodded and smiled. She didn't say anything else. Actually, there are many mysterious connections between the Astral Lord and the Astral Lord. I don't know either. When you guys are stronger, you will understand this connection better. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor glanced at Nietion and the rest and smiled. Nietion nodded and didn't say anything else. Following that, Nietion and the rest walked out of the cultivation space. The people guarding outside were very excited when they saw Nietion and the rest. Tang 13. Tang Yuyu was the most emotional. After she shouted, she directly jumped into Tang 13's arms. Her face was full of tears. Desolate Ghost. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor saw that Desolate Ghost had recovered. He took a step forward. His body, hidden under the black robe, was trembling slightly. After a long time, the crowd finally calmed down. Little friend Nietion, on behalf of the Luo Sha tribe, I thank you. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor suddenly walked to Nietion's side, bowed deeply, and said solemnly. Yuluo and the rest had already told the Luo Sha Hall's supervisor everything that had happened in the holy demon mystic realm. That was why the supervisor had done this. Lord Supervisor, you are too courteous. Nietion quickly helped the Luo Sha Hall's supervisor up and smiled faintly. Following that, the crowd left and soon arrived at the Luo Sha Hall of the 10 Directions. Little friend Nietion, the Luo Sha tribe will never forget your great kindness to the Luo Sha tribe. In the future, if you have any need for the Luo Sha Hall of the 10 Directions, the Luo Sha Hall of the 10 Directions will do anything for you. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor sat on the main seat and thanked Nietion once again. Lord Supervisor, you are too kind. Nietion smiled faintly. Then he thought of something and immediately extended his palm. A scarlet stone appeared in his palm. Azura Bloodstone. The Luo Sha Hall's supervisor could not help but exclaim when he saw the scarlet stone. He immediately stood up. Chapter 31:88. Return to the Holy Soul. The Rakshasa Temple leader had asked Nietion to enter the Holy Demon's secret realm for the Azura Bloodstone. However, too many things had happened previously, so the Rakshasa Temple leader had almost forgotten about it. The Azura Bloodstone could open the Holy Demon Book, which recorded the method to suppress the non-heavenly blood curse, which was the method to save the Rakshasa Temple leader's life. How could the Rakshasa Temple leader not be excited? Nietion smiled faintly and threw the Azura Bloodstone to the Rakshasa Temple leader. He said, Temple leader, I have already integrated a large amount of star energy into the Azura Bloodstone. It should be able to open the holy demon book. The Rakshasa temple leader caught the holy demon bloodstone and felt the star energy within it. His eyes shone with excitement under his black robe. After a long while, the sect master of the demon desolate sect finally calmed down. Then he bowed towards Nyetian again and said, Ten Directions Ghost Desolate, thank Mr. Nyetian on behalf of the Rakshasas. Opening the holy demon book not only saved the Rakshasa temple leader's life, but more importantly, it saved everyone in the Rakshasa tribe. The Rakshasa temple leader's blood had the non-heavenly blood curse. Even the Ghostland had it. The Rakshasa temple leader's bow was from the bottom of his heart. Nyetian hurriedly stepped forward and helped the Rakshasa temple leader up. Then, everyone chatted for a while. Nyetian stood up and said, Temple leader, I have been in the 10 Directions sacred realm for a long time. I have to leave now. Mr. Nyetian, are you leaving just like that? The Rakshasa temple leader was surprised. He did not expect Nyetian to leave so soon. I have other things to do, so it's not convenient for me to stay here any longer, Nyetian nodded and said calmly. He had almost settled the matters in the 10 Directions Rakshasa temple, so there was no need for him to stay any longer. Most importantly, he was worried about his father and the Nyef family, so he was eager to return. In that case, I won't hold you back. The Rakshasa temple leader stood up and said regretfully. He had wanted to entertain Nyetian with great hospitality, but now it seemed that there was no chance. Father, this child wishes to leave with Nyetian. Father, please agree. At this time, desolate ghost Wu Jiang suddenly stood up and said loudly. The Rakshasa palace master's figure turned sluggish. Then he smiled and said, Wu Jiang, father agrees to your request. However, you must remember that Mr. Nyetian is a great benefactor of our Rakshasa race. You must follow him and protect him well. I understand. Desolate, ghost wasteland nodded heavily and bowed. Nyetian frowned and could not help but laugh bitterly. To be honest, he did not want the boundless ghost Desolate to follow him. At this moment, he glanced at the Rakshasa temple supervisor, who nodded with a smile. He immediately understood that the boundless ghost Desolate wanted to leave with him. It was the Rakshasa Hall's order. It was obvious that the Rakshasa Hall supervisor wanted to find a guard for Nyetian. Desolate ghost Wujiang was already a 9th stage pseudo-saint. Even compared to a peak expert like Kuyo Onaguchi, he was not too far off. He would indeed be a good guard. The Rakshasa Hall supervisor made such a gracious arrangement that Nyetian could not refuse, so he could only obey. Then, the group walked out of the hall. Tang 13 and Tang Yuyu came to Nyetian's side with smiles on their faces. Tang 13, Tang Yuyu, are we going our separate ways again? Nyetian knew that the two were bidding farewell, so he could not help but laugh bitterly. Nyetian, we are going to the Jueying domain. Aren't you very interested in the Jueying shrine? Let me go there first. I can help you scout ahead, Tang 13 said with a slight nod. All right. The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched, and he smiled cheerfully. While they were chatting, Tang 13 had asked the Rakshasa Hall supervisor about the Jueying shrine. At that time, Nyetian had guessed that this fellow was most likely going to the Jueying domain. Tang 13 already knew that the Shadow Moon greedy wolf of the Jueying shrine had a greedy wolf star soul, so he could not wait any longer. With Tang 13's current strength, there was no need for Nyetian to worry about him. The 5th stage pseudo-saint Tang 13 could defeat an expert like an Wufeng in an instant. Now, that Tang 13 was a 7th stage pseudo-saint. One could imagine how strong he was. In fact, Nyetian felt that even he might not be a match for Tang 13. However, he was confident that he would catch up soon. Next, the group arrived outside a space-time array. Tang 13 and Tang Yu left first. After they entered the array, their figures disappeared in the blink of an eye. As Nyetian watched the two disappear, the corner of his mouth twitched. He could not help but feel a little disappointed. Next, Nyetian and Desolate Ghost prepared to enter the array. Nyetian. At that moment, Yulua suddenly took a step forward. She looked at Nyetian, her eyes burning with tears. She seemed to have something to say, but in the end, she only said 2 words, "Take care. Take care." Nietion nodded with a smile, then entered the array with desolate ghost. Yuloo watched as Nietion's figure disappeared. Tears welled up in her eyes. She did have something to say to Nietion, but she did not have the courage to say it. In her opinion, Nietion was too outstanding. Nietion, if fate wills it, we will meet again, Yuloo said silently in her heart. The Rakshasa Hall Supervisor and the Rakshasa Hall Supervisor shook their heads at the same time. At the same time, two figures appeared in the sky above the sacred spirit region. It was Nietion and Desolate Ghost. The two had arrived at the sacred spirit region from the Decimo territory through the space-time formation. I'm finally back. Nietion took a deep breath after returning to the sacred spirit region. He was overjoyed. Nietion, where are we going now? Desolate Ghost stood beside Nietion. It was his first time coming to the legendary sacred spirit region, and he could not help but feel excited. Desolate Ghost, you're too strong. You should hide your aura. Nietion did not say it directly, but smiled. Desolate Ghost was not even 1,000 years old, but his strength had already reached the ninth order pseudo-sacred realm. Desolate Ghost nodded and withdrew his aura. Nietion examined the boundless Ghost Desolation's aura and smiled, looking very satisfied. This is good enough. Desolate Ghost hid his aura with the Hand of Destruction. As long as he did not release his aura or use the Hand of Destruction, not many people would be able to sense his true strength. Let's contact Old Hua. At this moment, Nietion smiled, and a jade talisman appeared in his hand. It was the jade talisman that Hua Iru had given him before they parted. With a thought, Nietion inserted a stream of his divine sense into the jade talisman and asked for Hua Iru's whereabouts. Chapter 3189. It's been so long. Nietion frowned as he sensed the image transmitted from the jade talisman. His expression turned ugly. Didn't Hua Iru bring Wei Kong and Shur Lulon back to the shore of the Sea of Bitterness when they parted ways? Why would he suddenly appear in Saint Soul Academy? Moreover, Hua Iru's expression was very nervous, which was very different from his usual calm demeanor. If not for Hua Iru's aura in the jade talisman, Nietion would have suspected that the person in the image wasn't Hua Iru. Did something happen? Nietion's heart sank as a bad premonition rose in his heart. Nietion, are you all right? Desolate Ghost frowned as he saw Nietion's strange expression and asked in a low voice. I'm fine. Nietion waved his hand and said, let's go to Saint Soul Academy now. With that, a pair of star soul wings appeared on Nietion's back, and he soared into the sky like a rainbow. Desolate Ghost frowned as he didn't know what was going on. He could only follow after Huang Xiaolong. Half a day later, Nietion and Desolate Ghost silhouettes appeared in the sky above Saint Soul Academy. Is this Saint Soul Academy? Desolate Ghost's eyes narrowed as he looked at the Saint Soul Academy below him. Come with me. Nietion nodded, and his silhouette directly landed on the Saint Soul Square. The sudden arrival of Nietion and Desolate Ghost caused the surrounding crowd to be stunned. Immediately afterwards, someone recognized Nietion, and his expression flickered. Nietion is back. The trader's son, Nietion, he actually dared to come back. I heard that in the Arctic Ice Mountain, he single-handedly swallowed the Holy World Seed, offending all the major forces in the Saint Soul region. Now he actually dares to come back to the academy. Isn't he courting death? No, his aura is so strong, I can't sense his strength. The crowd looked at Nietion in disgust and shock. Desolate Ghost frowned. He didn't expect Nietion to be so famous in Saint Spirit Academy. However, Nietion didn't pay any attention to the others and directly walked towards the Holy Soul Palace. He was worried about Hua Iru, so he walked very quickly. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. Nietion, you've finally returned. In the next moment, a low and murderous voice rang out in midair. It was actually a very familiar voice. Nietion's eyebrows furrowed as he spun around and saw a figure standing coldly in midair. Frowning, he said, Ho Ching, I don't have time for you. Don't provoke me. The person who appeared now was precisely Ho Qing, who had previously fought with Ji Cho Wu for the title of number 1 in Saint Spirit Academy. Back then, Ho Qing disappeared for a very long time before appearing again and successfully defeating Ji Cho Wu. However, he was defeated by Niet Tian again and still failed to become the number 1 in the Outer Sanctum. After his defeat, he was scolded by Niet Tian and said that he would fight Niet Tian again in 3 months. However, Niet Tian completely ignored him. He waited for 3 months, but Niet Tian had already left Saint Spirit Academy. After that, he waited in the Holy Soul Plaza for Niet Tian to show up. Now that Niet Tian had finally shown up, there was no way he would let him go. Niet Tian, you didn't show up for our duel. But it doesn't matter, it's not too late to fight now. Ho Qing stood in the air, his entire body emanating an extremely thick killing intent, as he said in a wild voice, I'm now a demi-saint. How are you going to fight me? The number 1 in the Outer Sanctum is mine, Ho Qing. Ho Qing was very persistent about being the number 1 in the Outer Sanctum. Back then, Niet Tian had said that a person who cared so much about his reputation was destined to not achieve much in martial arts. The crowd's eyes trembled as if they were looking forward to the duel between Niet Tian and Ho Qing. Desolate Ghost Boundless could not help but look at Ho Qing as if he was looking an idiot. He was even suspecting that he had misheard or sensed wrongly that Ho Qing really was a demi-saint. A first-stage demi-saint actually dared to challenge Niet Tian? Just what kind of brain did he have? With Niet Tian's current ability, he would not be afraid even if he ran into a high-level demi-saint. Niet Tian simply ignored Ho Qing and headed straight for the Holy Soul Grand Hall. Niet Tian, how dare you ignore me? Ho Qing was instantly enraged at being ignored. With a low roar, his figure moved like a bolt of lightning towards Niet Tian. This! The crowd could not help but gasp when they felt Ho Qing's killing intent, as if they could already see the scene of Niet Tian being killed with a single strike. Get out of my way! Niet Tian strode forward and did not even look back. With a low roar, his entire body unleashed a wave of sword aura. Ow! In an instant, Ho Qing sensed a huge killing intent and screamed as the sword aura all over his body was immediately shattered. Bang! In the next moment, his figure was sent flying and smashed heavily onto the ground, leaving a bloody trail behind. The sudden and bizarre scene, left the crowd stunned. Their eyes trembled, and they could not speak for a long time. They did not even see Niet Tian make a move. How did Ho Qing get defeated? Ho Qing's body trembled as he struggled to stand up, his face filled with extreme shock. He could not believe that Niet Tian had become so powerful at this moment. A single wave of sword aura had directly destroyed him and crippled his Yuan meridians, turning him into a cripple. Why didn't you kill me? Ho Qing suddenly roared in extreme despair. Rather than crippling him, Niet Tian might as well kill him. A person like you does not deserve to be a martial artist. Killing you will only dirty my hands, Niet Tian replied coldly without turning his head, and then he ran towards the Holy Soul Hall. Huang Wujiang looked back at Ho Qing, shook his head, and then followed after Niet Tian. The crowd stared at Niet Tian's figure in a daze, as if they were in a dream. They could not react for a long time. After a while, Niet Tian arrived outside the Holy Soul Hall. From afar, he saw a figure in black standing outside the hall, staring at him with an extremely cold gaze. Kuyo Onaguchi. Niet Tian could not help but tremble when he saw the figure's face, and he shouted out his name. The Jade Talisman showed that Hua Iru was in the Holy Soul Hall, and Kuyo Onaguchi was actually outside the hall. Did something really happen to Hua Iru? Niet Tian, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for so long. Kuyo Onaguchi looked at Niet Tian from afar, and his lips curled into a faint smile as he said in a low voice, Where's Elder Hua? Niet Tian did not waste any time, and immediately rushed over and growled, He's waiting for you inside. Kuyo Onaguchi sneered, and then his gaze fell on Huang Wujiang. His eyes were very strange, but he did not say anything. Huang Wujiang also looked at Kuyo Onaguchi, and he could not help but feel nervous when he felt the murderous intent from the latter. Then, Niet Tian and Huang Wujiang entered the hall. Under Kuyo Onaguchi's lead, they came to a secret room in the hall. As soon as they stepped into the secret room, Nietion's eyes widened, and he was stunned on the spot. Inside the secret room, a figure was pierced through by several chains. His body was a mess of flesh, and he was barely breathing. Chapter 3190. Sinister and Ruthless. Elder Hua. Nietion's eyes narrowed when he saw the blood-colored figure in front of him. Nietion, you've come after all. Hua Iru suddenly raised his head. The moment he saw Nietion, his murky eyes flickered with a strange light. Elder Hua. Nietion's eyes trembled. He took a step forward, wanting to go over. However, Hua Iru's expression changed. He involuntarily retreated, pulling on the iron chain that pierced through his body. He immediately let out a miserable shriek. Nietion was stunned. He stopped moving, not daring to go any closer. It was obvious that Hua Iru was afraid of something. Oomph! At this moment, Kuyo Onaguchi sneered and said, "The chains in his body are engraved with the sacred soul curse. If you go any closer, the curse in your body will be activated. This is not good for you." Nietion's expression darkened. He suddenly looked at Kuyo Onaguchi with a cold and murderous gaze. His entire body was suppressing a terrifying rage. Desolated Ghost instantly tensed up. He began to slowly release his aura. As long as Nietion gave the order, he would attack without hesitation. He knew that Kuyo Onaguchi was a terrifying opponent. His strength was probably on par with an expert like the Rakshasa Temple leader. Therefore, he had to attack immediately to gain the upper hand. Kuyo Onaguchi suddenly felt that something was amiss. He could not help but turn to look at Desolated Ghost. He laughed and said, "I didn't expect you to be so strong. There are many things that you didn't expect." Desolated Ghost sneered and looked at Nietion. "Nietion, I advise you to calm down if you don't want Hua Iru to die." Kuyo Onaguchi looked at Nietion and sneered. Nietion suppressed the terrible anger in his eyes. His whole body was trembling, but when he saw Hua Iru, he calmed down. Kuyo Onaguchi's strength was unfathomable. Even if it was the current boundless ghost desolation, it was impossible for him to be his opponent. Most importantly, if he made a move now, it would undoubtedly put Hua Iru in great danger. Since Kuyo Onaguchi kept Hua Iru alive, it meant that he didn't want to kill Hua Iru. He just wanted to use him as a bargaining chip. "Nietion, you really are a smart person." Seeing Nietion became cold, Kuyo Onaguchi sneered and said, "The chips in my hands are much more than what you see." Nietion's eyes narrowed, and his expression changed instantly. He said coldly, "Kuyo Onaguchi, speak clearly." What Kuyo Onaguchi meant was that he had other bargaining chips in his hands. "Come out," Kuyo Onaguchi said lightly with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure walked out from a secret door in the secret room. The moment he saw the figure clearly, Nietion frowned and was stunned. This figure turned out to be the eldest princess of the Holy Moon Dynasty, Jing Yue. In the next moment, Nietion reacted. His expression suddenly changed, and his eyes trembled violently. He never thought that the person who appeared in front of him at this moment would be Jing Yue. Jing Yue was the eldest princess of the Holy Moon Dynasty. Why would she appear here? Moreover, from Jing Yue's reaction, it seemed that she and Kuyo Onaguchi knew each other and were very familiar with each other. At this time, Kuyo Onaguchi laughed and said, "Yue, Nietion is so surprised. Don't you want to introduce our relationship to him?" Nietion was stunned again, and his eyes could not help but tremble. What was the relationship between Kuyo Onaguchi and Jing Yue? "Yes, grandfather," Jing Yue said with a slight bow with a cold expression. "Grandfather?" Nietion was stunned, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. He did not expect that Kuyo Onaguchi was Jing Yue's grandfather. Could it be that Jing Yue was also a member of the Holy Soul Ghost Valley clan? Jing Yue turned to look at Nietion. She wanted to speak, but did not know what to say. "Yue, you don't have to say anything." Nietion became cold and waved his hand slightly, indicating that Jing Yue did not need to explain anything. Jing Yue did not know about the grievances between Nie Tian and Kuyo Onaguchi. Moreover, her current situation was clearly controlled by Kuyo Onaguchi. Kuyo Onaguchi, what happened between you and me has nothing to do with Jing Yue. I hope you don't involve her. Nie Tian suddenly raised his head and cold looked at Kuyo Onaguchi. Umph. Kuyo Onaguchi looked at Nie Tian and could naturally see that the latter cared about Jing Yue. He smiled sinisterly. Nie Tian, what happened between us has nothing to do with Yue. However, she is my granddaughter and your woman, Nie Tian. This dean made her appear just to make you understand that the chips in my hands are more than you can imagine. Nie Tian could hear the threat in Kuyo Onaguchi's words. His face turned gloomy and his eyes slightly trembled. He did not expect that Kuyo Onaguchi would be so sinister and vicious that he would use his granddaughter as a bargaining chip to threaten him. Nie Tian, it's true that Yue is my granddaughter, but this dean doesn't mind sacrificing her if necessary. Kuyo Onaguchi coldly stared at Nie Tian and coldly said. Nie Tian furrowed his brows and suppressed the anger in his eyes. He just looked at Kuyo Onaguchi and didn't speak. He believed that Kuyo Onaguchi would really kill Jing Yue, given how ruthless he was. In the eyes of people like Kuyo Onaguchi, kinship and bloodline were just tools that could be used. Kuyo Onaguchi, what do you want me to do? After a while, Nie Tian calmed down and said in a deep voice. Kuyo Onaguchi had captured Hua Yiru and Jing Yue, but did not kill them. He was obviously waiting for Nie Tian to appear. He must have wanted Nie Tian to do something for him. Nie Tian, what stage has the Holy Soul Curse seal in your body been upgraded to? Kuyo Onaguchi's eyes were cold as he looked at Nie Tian and asked. 4th stage. Nie Tian's face was gloomy and cold. When Kuyo Onaguchi injected the Holy Soul Curse seal into his martial body, it was only at the 1st stage. But now, as his strength increased, the Holy Soul Curse seal had also been upgraded to the 4th stage. Not bad. Kuyo Onaguchi's eyes turned slightly hot as he said with a smile. With your rank 3 pseudo-sacred strength, you can actually withstand the rank 4 Holy Soul Curse seal. This elder is really amazed. It had to be said that Nie Tian's growth speed had far exceeded Kuyo Onaguchi's expectations. It had been less than a year since he separated from Nie Tian in the Arctic Ice Mountain. When Nie Tian appeared again, he was actually a rank 3 pseudo-sacred. What monster! What surprised him even more was that Nie Tian's martial body was far stronger than he had expected. It was terrifying that a rank 3 pseudo-sacred could withstand a rank 4 Holy Soul Curse seal so easily. You want the Holy Soul Curse seal in my body? Nie Tian looked at Kuyo Onaguchi and had a guess in his heart. Chapter 3191. Crisscrossing Heaven's Seal. Retract the seal. Nie Tian was stunned, his face darkening. He did not know what Kuyo Onaguchi meant. Nie Tian, since things have come to this dean will be straightforward with you. Kuyo Onaguchi smiled cold and said, You are just a tool to nourish the seal. This dean planted the Holy Soul Seal in your body because I wanted it to grow in your body. The Holy Soul Seal is an evolutionary type seal with an extremely powerful devouring ability. It uses the bloodline power of a martial artist as nourishment and slowly evolves. The stronger the martial artist's talent and bloodline power, the faster the Holy Soul Seal will grow. So that's how it is. Nie Tian frowned, his face darkening with killing intent. He did not expect that in Kuyo Onaguchi's eyes, he was just a tool to nourish the seal. Nie Tian, this dean has to admit that you are the most talented martial artist this dean has met in the past hundreds of thousands of years. Then, Kuyo Onaguchi looked at Nie Tian with a gloomy expression and said, The Holy Soul Seal has only been in your body for a few years, but it has grown to rank 4. This is beyond this dean's expectations. You should know that even your father, Nie Fenghua, has not been able to make the Holy Soul Seal grow to rank 4. Father, he is also a tool to nourish the seal. Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he said in a deep voice. The blood in his body trembled as if it would erupt in the next moment like a volcano. Nie Fenghua was Kuyo Onaguchi's disciple, but he was also used as a tool to nourish the seal. In Kuyo Onaguchi's eyes, it seemed that everyone was just a tool. Of course, Kuyo Onaguchi smiled cold and said, "This dean might as well tell you. The reason your father became a traitor was because he did not want to continue nourishing this dean's seal. At that time, he risked his life to force the Holy Soul curse mark out of his body. I had no choice but to expel him from the Holy Soul Academy and engrave his name on the Holy Soul Sin tablet. The reason why I didn't kill him was because I thought that perhaps one day he would change his mind and be willing to return to my side." As he spoke, Kuyo Onaguchi let out a cold smile. There was some regret on his face as he sighed and said, "Unfortunately, he still refuses to repent. You actually want to kill me? You've truly wasted my painstaking efforts. Kuyo Onaguchi, you deserve to die." After listening to Kuyo Onaguchi's words, Nietion's blood surged in his body. His eyes turned scarlet, and his killing intent surged. It was as if he was about to go berserk. At this moment, if he didn't have a shred of rationality left, Nietion would have definitely attacked. Kuyo Onaguchi was so vicious, but he still had an innocent look on his face. How could Nietion not be angry? Nietion, your anger right now, in this dean's eyes, is nothing but a joke. Kuyo Onaguchi looked at Nietion and smiled coldly. Remember this dean's words. To the strong, the anger of the weak is never a threat, but a joke. Nietion's gaze was gloomy. His entire body was bursting with anger. He squeezed the words out of his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Kuyo Onaguchi, I, Nietion, am not as good as you right now. But you will not always be strong. It won't be long before I'll step on your head and show you who's the real expert. Is that so?" Kuyo Onaguchi smiled cold and said, "This dean will be waiting for that day to come." Nietion's face was so gloomy that it looked like it was bleeding. After a long time, he calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Kuyo Onaguchi, tell me your real purpose." "Nietion, do you know why this dean wants to cultivate the Holy Spirit incantation?" Kuyo Onaguchi's eyes slightly sank as he asked with a pondering expression. "Get to the point." Nietion didn't want to talk nonsense with Kuyo Onaguchi and said cold. Kuyo Onaguchi was stunned for a moment, but he still said, "You should already know that this dean is from the Holy Spirit Ghost Valley clan. And the Holy Spirit Ghost Valley clan is one of the 4 great ancient clans. A long time ago, the Holy Spirit Ghost Valley clan made a mistake and was sealed in the Ghost Valley. For so many years, this dean has always wanted to break the Ghost Valley clan seal and unseal the Ghost Valley clan. But the seal that seals the Ghost Valley clan is called the Unstoppable Heavenly Seal. It's not that easy to break the seal. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, this dean knew that the Holy Spirit incantation is the key to breaking the Unstoppable Heavenly Seal. Since then, this dean has been cultivating the Holy Spirit incantation. But it's a pity that none of the people this dean found could nurture a strong enough Holy Spirit incantation. Until your appearance, this dean saw hope. At this point, Kuyo Onaguchi paused for a moment. His eyes swept across Nietion and continued. This dean originally planned to wait until the Holy Spirit incantation in your body is strong enough before taking back the incantation. But not long ago, the Ghost Valley clan's earth veins suddenly became unstable, which forced this dean to take out the Holy Spirit incantation in your body in advance. Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly. Without hesitation, he said, "If you want the Holy Spirit incantation, I can return it to you anytime. Just come and take it." To Nietion, the Holy Spirit incantation was a burden. He did not want it in the first place. If Kuyo Onaguchi wanted to take it away, he would be more than happy to have it. "Nietion, it's not as simple as you think." Kuyo Onaguchi laughed and said, "Although the Holy Spirit incantation in your body has grown to the 4th rank, it's still far from enough to break the Unstoppable Heavenly Seal." Nietion's eyes darkened as he asked coldly, "What do you want me to do?" "Your strength must increase. At least raise the Holy Spirit incantation to the 6th rank." Kuyo Onaguchi said cold. Upon hearing Kuyo Onaguchi's words, Nyetion's eyes widened, and his expression stiffened. Back when he had received the Holy Spirit incantation, he had only been a peak paramount god. Even after reaching the 3rd rank, he had only been able to raise the Holy Spirit incantation to the 4th rank. But now, Kuyo Onaguchi wanted the Holy Spirit incantation to the 6th rank. How was he supposed to get it? He guessed that even if he reached the 9th rank, he wouldn't be able to raise the Holy Spirit incantation to the 6th rank. The Ghost Valley clan was forcing his hand. Nyetion, I know that it won't be easy for you to raise the Holy Spirit incantation to the 6th rank, but you have to do it. Kuyo Onaguchi looked coldly at Nyetion, then at Hua Iru and Jing Yue. His threat was clear. If Nyetion couldn't get the Holy Spirit incantation to the 6th rank, he would kill Hua Iru and Jing Yue without the slightest hesitation. How much time do I have? Nyetion asked coldly, his eyes darkening. It was impossible for him to raise the Holy Spirit incantation to the 6th rank right away. Kuyo Onaguchi had to give him time. 3 months, Kuyo Onaguchi said with a faint smile. That's the longest I can give you. 3 months? Nyetion was taken aback, and his face stiffened. Chapter 3192. Divine Evolution Saint Spirit. When Nyetion heard Kuyo Onaguchi's 3-month deadline, his face stiffened, and he was speechless for a long time. No matter how talented he was, he couldn't upgrade the Saint Soul Curse to the 6th stage in such a short time. Grandpa, 3 months is too short for Nyetion. At this time, Jing Yue stepped forward and said with her beautiful eyes twinkling, Yue, Grandpa gave Nyetion 3 months. That's the maximum deadline. Kuyo Onaguchi smiled coldly and stared at Jing Yue with cold eyes. Your mother is already woken up. Grandpa can wait, but your mother can't. If the Ghost Valley cannot be opened within 3 months, your mother will be dead for sure. Jing Yue's beautiful eyes trembled and her pretty face stiffened. She was completely speechless. Nyetion frowned, and his tensed face instantly turned gloomy. How could he not hear that Kuyo Onaguchi had actually controlled Jing Yue's mother? Jing Yue's mother was Kuyo Onaguchi's daughter. Kuyo Onaguchi dared to use his own daughter as a hostage. The viciousness in his heart was outrageous. Previously, Nyetion heard from Jing Yue that the latter was currently under a powerful curse and had fallen into eternal slumber. Now it seemed that the curse on Jing Yue's mother was clearly the Saint Soul Curse. Nyetion guessed that Kuyo Onaguchi should have used Jing Yue's mother as a vessel to nourish the curse. Kuyo Onaguchi was simply insane to use his own daughter as a tool. Such a father was worse than a beast. Nyetion, you also don't want Yue's mother to die, right? Kuyo Onaguchi looked at Nyetion and said with a faint smile. Nyetion's face was gloomy, and he didn't say anything. Kuyo Onaguchi's viciousness and maliciousness had exceeded his expectations. Even talking to this kind of person made him sick. Nyetion, you can leave now. This dean will wait for you here. 3 months from now, we'll meet again. Kuyo Onaguchi didn't want to talk too much with Nyetion, so he said with a faint smile. Nyetion's cold eyes swept over Kuyo Onaguchi and then looked at Jing Yue. He took a step forward with a firm look and said, Yue, wait for me to come back. Yes. Jing Yue nodded heavily. Although she tried her best to remain calm, tears still fell from her eyes. Nyetion's heart trembled, and he immediately felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. He stepped forward and wiped away the tears on Jing Yue's face without saying anything. Then, he came to Hua Iru's side. Seeing the latter's painful look, his heart was once again filled with anger. Kuyo Onaguchi, I promise you that I'll come back in 3 months. Remove the curse on Elder Hua. Nyetion suddenly turned around to look at Gu and said in a deep voice, That won't do. Kuyo Onaguchi laughed and said, Hua Iru isn't an ordinary person. At the Arctic Ice Mountain, he once showed his strength that was almost comparable to a sage. If I remove the curse, I won't be able to feel at ease. You? Nyetion's face darkened, and he suddenly became speechless. Nyetion, forget it. At this moment, Hua Iru spoke in a low voice, I can still bear this little pain. Nyetian looked at Hua Iru with a gloomy gaze and clenched his fists secretly. He could see that Hua Iru must have suffered unimaginable inhuman torture during this period of time. However, his current strength was limited, and he couldn't save Hua Iru immediately. He could only suffer for a while longer. Kuyo Anaguchi, I have something to say to Nyetian. Please leave. Hua Iru suddenly raised his head, and his eyes flickered with a strange light as he spoke with difficulty. All right. Kuyo Anaguchi was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and said to Jing Yue, Yue, let's go. Jing Yue nodded and looked at Nyetian for a long time before leaving with Kuyo Anaguchi. Nyetian looked at Jing Yue's figure with trembling eyes, suppressing the terrifying anger in his heart. Seeing his woman being threatened and taken away, the pain was indescribable. However, he had no choice but to suppress the pain in his heart. Pain was also the motivation for Nyetian to become stronger. He swore that he would make Kuyo Anaguchi pay the most painful price. After a while, Nyetian became cold and asked Hua Iru, Elder Hua, what do you want to say to me? Nyetian, you really didn't let me down. Hua Iru looked at Nyetian, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up, revealing a trace of a smile on his face. Elder Hua, you. At this time, Nyetian suddenly felt that Hua Iru's aura seemed to have changed. It was very strange, and he couldn't help but frown in surprise. Nyetian, I'm fine. Hua Iru's eyes trembled slightly, and he no longer spoke. Instead, he transmitted his voice. There is one thing I want to tell you. The power to unseal the third star-marked dark seal is in the traversing heavenly seal. Traversing heavenly seal? Nyetian's eyes narrowed, and he immediately reacted. The traversing heavenly seal was the seal that sealed Gue Gudian, and it was also the seal that Kuyo Anaguchi had always wanted to unseal. He never thought that there would be something in the traversing heavenly seal that could unseal the third star-marked dark seal. Nyetian, the third star-marked dark seal, can only be unsealed with the power of the ancient 9 saint souls. Hua Iru continued, I have confirmed that the Sky Evolution Saint Soul, one of the ancient 9 saint souls, is sealed in the traversing heavenly seal. As long as you absorb the power of the Sky Evolution Saint Soul, you can unseal the third star-marked dark seal. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he could clearly feel the passion in Hua Iru's eyes. He now understood why Hua Iru was a teacher in the Saint Soul Academy. It turned out that it was for the Sky Evolution Saint Soul. He didn't understand the Sky Evolution Saint Soul at all, but he knew that it must be a very terrifying power. The unsealing of the star-marked dark seal should be getting more and more difficult. The second star-marked dark seal was unsealed, and Nyetian absorbed a sacred world seed. The third star-marked dark seal required one of the primordial 9 great saint souls. He guessed that the power of the Sky Evolution Saint Soul might be stronger than the Sacred World Seed. Nyetian, within 3 months, you must raise the Saint Soul Seal to the 6th rank. Hua Iru looked at Nyetian and said solemnly. Nyetian nodded, but his expression didn't look good. Of course, he wanted to raise the Saint Soul Seal, but it was not an easy task. Nyetian, I know of a method that can raise the grade of the incantation seals. However, you must first find a cultivator who possesses the 10 most powerful seals. Hua Iru stared at Nyetian with a burning gaze and said, It would be best if it is a seal with a strong perception, such as the 3,000 demon seal. 3,000 demon seal? When Nyetian heard Hua Iru's words, his eyes couldn't help but tremble. After a scream, he was stunned on the spot. You know about the 3,000 demon seal? Hua Iru asked in surprise when he saw Nyetian's expression. Chapter 3193. The 3,000 Seals of the Hidden Dragon. Not only did Nyetian know about the 3,000 seals, but he was also very familiar with them. In the 3,000 Small Worlds, one of his best brothers, Jean de Bayo, was someone who had the 3,000 seals of the gods and demons. That was why Nyetian was so excited when he heard Hua Iru mention the 3,000 seals of the gods and demons. Hua Iru looked at Nyetian, his eyes trembling as he asked, "Have you seen a warrior who has the 3,000 seals of the gods and demons?" "Yes." Nyetian nodded heavily. "Elder Hua, I have a brother who has the 3,000 seals of the gods and demons. It's just that I haven't seen him for many years. I don't know how strong he is and how many of the 3,000 seals of the gods and demons have been awakened. His strength is not important. The most important thing is that this person must be trustworthy. Elder Hua, don't worry. My fierce brother is definitely trustworthy." Nyetian smiled faintly, his face firm. Jean de Bayo might not be very talented in martial arts, but he was definitely trustworthy. "That's good." Hua Ming nodded. "After you find this person, you will need something else." "What is it?" Nyetian asked, his eyes trembling. "Ice blue nightmare." Hua Iru's mouth twitched as he said indifferently, "An ice blue nightmare?" Nyetian was taken aback. He had no idea what it was. Hua Iru didn't explain too much. Instead, he said, "Take out the jade talisman I gave you." Nyetian took out the jade talisman and handed it to Hua Iru. The latter took it with difficulty, injected a strand of his divine sense into the jade talisman, and then returned it to Nyetian. "Nyetian, take the jade talisman to the headquarters of the Myriad Domains Guild and find a person called Xiaoho Yao. Then, give the jade talisman to him. Leave the rest to him." Hua Iru smiled faintly and nodded. "Yes." Nyetian nodded, secretly remembering the name Xiaoho Yao. Since this person was trusted by Hua Iru, he was trustworthy. "Nyetian, you only have 3 months. Be careful." Hua Iru let out a long breath and said solemnly. Nyetian nodded and said, "Elder Hua, I won't let you down." Next, Nyetian didn't linger. Together with Desolate, Ghost, Boundless, Desolate, they left the Holy Soul Palace and headed towards the space-time formation of the Holy Soul Academy. Along the way, everyone cast strange looks at Nyetian. Nobody expected that Nyetian would actually dare to return to Saint Spirit Academy, and moreover still be able to swagger away. Nyetian ignored all these gazes and headed straight for the space-time Grand Array. He only had 3 months, so he had to make every second count in the remaining time. He had to return to the 9 regions first. Jean de Bayo should be in the 9 regions now. Back when Nyetian was in the 9 regions, after the Evil Edge Sword competition, he had asked Ghost Marshal Wild Sand to bring Jean de Bayo and the others to the 9 regions and let them join the Divine Martial Sword Pagoda. If there were no surprises, Jean de Bayo and his disciples should be in the Divine Martial Sword Pagoda. Nyetian and Desolate, Ghost, Boundless, Desolate soon arrived outside the space-time Grand Array. But just as they were about to enter the space-time Grand Array, 3 figures in green appeared in the sky. Nyetian's eyes narrowed as he sensed the sharp, murderous intent. He couldn't help but look at the 3 figures. These 3 martialists were all young martialists, but they were very strong. 2 of them had the strength of a 5th-stage pseudo-sage, while the other was a 6th-stage pseudo-sage. They were considered geniuses to have such strength at their age. The appearance of these 3 excited the crowd below. Look, the 3 of them seem to be on the Hidden Dragon ranking. They really are Hidden Dragon martialists. The guy in the middle is actually on the Hidden Dragon roll, Jing Liuguang. The other 2 seem to be 2nd and 3rd on the Hidden Dragon roll, Feng Wuhin and Long Tingxiao. The top 3 of the Hidden Dragon roll have appeared at the same time. This has never happened before. The crowd looked at the 3 martialists in shock. The martialists on the Hidden Dragon roll of the Holy Soul Academy were originally very secretive. Many people had been in the academy for hundreds of years, and it was rare for them to see a Hidden Dragon martialist. But now, the Hidden Dragon roll had appeared at the same time. How could the crowd not be surprised? Nyetian frowned as he looked at the Hidden Dragon roll. Looking at the posture of these 3, it was obvious that they were here for him, but he had no intention of paying attention to them. Instead, he walked directly towards the space-time Grand Array. "Son of a traitor, do you want to swagger away after returning to the Holy Soul Academy?" But at this moment, Jing Liuguang, who was on the Hidden Dragon roll, sneered. His voice was deep and filled with a strong, murderous intent. "You want to stop me?" Nyetian frowned. He looked up at Jing Liuguang and smiled coldly. It was no coincidence that the hidden dragon roll had appeared at the same time. Nie Tian could guess with his toes that this must have been arranged by Kuyo Onaguchi. But he did not understand why Kuyo Onaguchi would do this. Nie Tian only had 3 months. Wasn't it a waste of time for these 3 to come and cause trouble? Nie Tian, you can't leave today. Jing Liuguang laughed coldly. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. He gathered his aura, and a strange aura surged around him. Holy Soul curse mark. Nie Tian's gaze froze, and his expression changed. He immediately reacted. Jing Liuguang and the other 2 were all people who had been cursed by the Holy Soul curse mark. But thinking about it, this was not strange. After all, the Hidden Dragon Roll's top 3 were all monstrous geniuses. How could Kuyo Onaguchi let go of such a good vessel to nourish the curse mark? And at this moment, Nie Tian also understood why Kuyo Onaguchi had let Jing Liuguang and the other 2 appear. He wanted Nie Tian to kill Jing Liuguang and the other 2 and absorb the Holy Soul curse mark in their bodies. Jing Liuguang and the other 2 might have received the Holy Soul curse mark earlier than Nie Tian, but the level of their Holy Soul curse mark was definitely not as high as Nie Tian's. So, these 3 were abandoned by Kuyo Onaguchi. But the 3 of them definitely did not know this. They thought that Kuyo Onaguchi had wanted them to kill Nie Tian. Nie Tian understood this. His gaze darkened, and he said cold, I don't want to kill anyone. You can scram. You don't want to kill anyone? As soon as Nie Tian's voice fell, Feng Wuhan, who was behind Jing Liuguang, stepped forward and said cold, You, a 3rd-tier pseudo-sage scum, dare to say such words. As he said that, his figure moved, wanting to attack directly. But at this moment, another figure had already moved. Brother Jing, Brother Feng, it's just an ant. There's no need for you to do anything. Watch me kill him. Long Tengxiao's figure was like a dragon. He was extremely fast. With a sneer, a violent aura erupted from his body. Like a tumbling sea, the aura pressed down on Nie Tian like a raging wave. Courting death, Desolate Ghost growled when he saw this. He took a step forward and wanted to attack. Desolate Ghost, let me do it. At this moment, Nie Tian waved his hand and stopped Desolate Ghost. Chapter 3194. Dark Night, again long, Tengxiao's sudden attack caused the crowd's eyes to tremble and their expressions to change. Long Tengxiao was one of the top 3 Hidden Dragon warriors, and his strength had reached the 5th rank. Would Nie Tian be able to take his attack? Boom! However, at this moment, Nie Tian took a step forward and a surge of sword force shot up into the sky. It was incomparably violent and bombarded the void. Boom! Bang, bang, bang. Then, the soaring sword force rushed over and the aura around Long Tengxiao collapsed. Long Tengxiao's figure was sent flying for hundreds of meters before he managed to stabilize himself. However, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. How is this possible? His eyes darkened, and he cried out in shock. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He was a 5th-rank pseudo-sage expert, but he couldn't even take the sword force of a 3rd-rank pseudo-sage. It was simply too unbelievable. Everyone was equally shocked, and the shock in their hearts was written on their faces. How did Nie Tian do it? How can his sword force be so strong? Is this kid a monster? I heard that he came from another realm. When he was at the academy, he wasn't even a half-sage. Now, he actually has the strength of a 3rd-rank pseudo-sage. This is too scary. Even Long Tengxiao is no match for this kid. This kid is really abnormal. The scene just now was like a dream. It made everyone feel that it was unreal, and they all exclaimed in shock. Long Tengxiao, if I'm an ant, then what are you? Are you not even as good as an ant? Nie Tianling said coldly and looked at Long Tengxiao with a gloomy expression. Long Tengxiao's eyes trembled, and he couldn't say a word. Each of Nie Tian's words was like a resounding slap to his face. That was a warning. If you dare to attack again, I will definitely kill you. Nie Tian didn't care about him anymore. He said with a cold gaze and walked towards the space-time formation again. Jing Liuguang and the other 2 were stunned. Then, they reacted and a fierce light flashed in their eyes. Tian didn't want to kill them, but they wanted to kill Tian. Do it! In the next instant, Jing Lu Guang roared in a low voice. His silhouette flickered as his aura surged. He slammed out with his palm, unleashing an incomparably violent palm energy that transformed into a palm silhouette that shot towards Tian. Boom! Boom! At the same time, Feng Wuhan and Long Tingxiao also made their moves. Their surging power caused the air to tremble violently as they attacked Tian. Everyone's eyes widened in shock when they saw this. It was very rare for the top 3 of the Hidden Dragon class A to work together. What was even rarer was that the person they wanted to kill was only a pseudo-sage 3rd order cultivator. Since you're looking for death, don't blame me. Tian's lips twitched as he sensed the terrifying aura in the air. He spoke coldly. He had already given the 3 of them a warning, but they still didn't give up and insisted on killing him. He couldn't be blamed for this. 9 limits of starry sky, slash of the heavens. In the next moment, Tian spun around, his aura surging madly as he unleashed his boundless sword intent. The star heavenly slash slashed out. Like a raging dragon, the sword image soared into the sky, giving rise to a raging sword cry. Retreat! The terrifying sword's silhouette exploded with a terrifying amount of qi. Jing Lu Guang's eyes widened and he shrieked in fear. Then his silhouette froze. He wanted to retreat, but it was too late. Boom! The sword silhouette clashed, and the light from the sword illuminated the sky. It was extremely dazzling. However, within this dazzling light, there was a terrifying amount of killer's intent. At that moment, everyone's eyes widened. They saw that wherever the sword silhouette passed by, there was blood everywhere. Jing Lu Guang, Feng Wuhan, and Long Tingxiao. The top 3 Hidden Dragon class A cultivators had died without even a corpse left. One sword, merely one sword, and Tian had killed the top 3 Hidden Dragon class A cultivators. Everyone's eyes widened as they all turned to stone and turned into wooden blocks. Tian's strength had already exceeded their expectations. It was far from what they could imagine. At that moment, Tian's face was calm. He looked into the sky and found 3 black vortexes that were surging with the strong aura of the Holy Soul Curse Seal. These 3 vortexes were the Holy Soul Curse Seals that Jing Lu Guang and the other 2 had left behind. However, Tian suddenly raised his hand, and 3 streaks of sword qi shot out, directly shattering the 3 vortexes. He did not absorb the Holy Soul Curse Seals of Jing Lu Guang and the others, but directly shattered them. In the distant sky, a hidden figure saw this scene. His eyes darkened, and his expression was ugly. This figure was none other than Kuyo Onaguchi. Tian had guessed correctly. Jing Lu Guang and the others had been arranged by Kuyo Onaguchi. But Kuyo Onaguchi did not expect that Tian's strength was actually powerful to such an extent. He could kill Jing Lu Guang and the other 2 with one sword. What made Kuyo Onaguchi even more surprised was that Tian had actually directly shattered the 3 Holy Soul Curse Seal vortexes. After a moment, Kuyo Onaguchi's eyes darkened as he said viciously in his heart, Tian, in 3 months, if the Holy Soul Curse Seal in your body has not reached the 6th stage, this Dean will definitely kill you personally. He had arranged for Jing Lu Guang and the other 2 to help Tian. But Tian did not care at all. Instead, he shattered the Holy Soul Curse Seal. This made him feel like he had been slapped in the face. Tianling stood where he was, the corner of his mouth curling into a cold smile. Although he did not know where Kuyo Onaguchi was, he knew that the latter was definitely observing in the dark. He wanted to use this method to let Kuyo Onaguchi feel his resistance. Desolate Ghost, let's go. Then, Tian looked at Desolate Ghost, and the 2 entered the space-time grand array together. God-forbidding domain, Tian directly said to one of the cultivators guarding the grand array. The latter's sluggish expression returned to his face, and he nodded repeatedly. Under countless shocked gazes, Tian and Desolate Ghost disappeared into the space-time grand array. In the God-forbidding realm of the 9 realms, 2 figures appeared in a dark void. They were none other than Nietion and boundless ghost desolation. I'm back. Nietion felt the familiar aura in the space. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he faintly smiled. At this moment, he wished he could immediately go to the Wind and Cloud Alliance to see Nye Dao and the others. He really wanted to know if the Nye family's ancestral land would open again. The people he was most concerned about were naturally Emo Rushi and the child in her belly. It had been more than 9 years since Emo Rushi entered the Nye family's ancestral land to avoid danger. This also meant that Nietion and Emo Rushi's child was about to be born. Thinking of this, Nietion felt inexplicably excited. Then, Nietion did not waste any time and immediately headed to Nine Heaven City. A day later, Nietion and Desolate Ghost arrived in the sky above the Nine Heavens mountain range. The moment the two set foot on the Nine Heavens mountain range, they felt something was wrong at the same time, and their expressions couldn't help but change. The surroundings were dead silent, filled with a murderous aura. Nietion and Desolate Ghost looked at each other, nodded slightly, and became cautious. At this moment, in the surrounding void, countless figures in black appeared and instantly surrounded the two. Nietion frowned, and his expression changed slightly. Then his eyes locked on a ghastly white face, and he called out the other party's name, Dugu Kan. Chapter 3195. Dugu Kan. Nietion's gaze sharpened when he saw an old acquaintance again. His eyes shone with a sharp killing intent. Nietion, you've finally appeared. Dugu Kan's skull-like pupils shrank slightly. Endless killing intent emanated from his body, filling the surrounding space with an extremely intense killing intent. How could he control the anger and killing intent in his heart when he saw Nietion again? Back when he killed the royal princess of the Holy Moon Dynasty, Dugu Kan, the great elder of the Evernight Empire, had personally led a dozen or so ward masters to set up a powerful barrier. But in the end, this meticulously planned assassination had been ruined by Nietion. Not only that, but the dozen or so ward masters had all died tragically. Even Dugu Kan, the great elder, had almost died. At that time, Nietion had only been a superior god. To Dugu Kan, this matter was a great humiliation. For this, he had not hesitated to put Nietion's name on the heavenly kill list of the Evernight Empire. But after so much time had passed, Nietion was still alive. As long as Nietion was alive, Dugu Kan felt a thorn in his back and a fishbone in his throat. He could not eat or sleep in peace. Now that he saw Nietion again, he wanted nothing more than to rush up and torture Nietion to death. But he did not do so, because he had other thoughts about Nietion. Looks like you've been waiting for me for a long time, Nietion said coldly as he looked at Dugu Kan with a sharp gaze. Judging from the formation, Dugu Kan had clearly been lying in wait for Nietion to appear. It was obvious that Dugu Kan had found out Nietion's identity, which was why he had brought people to the Nine Heavens mountain range to wait for him. At that moment, Nietion could not help but worry. Would Dugu Kan attack the people from the Wind and Cloud Alliance? Nietion, I didn't expect you to be from one of the 9 core regions. Dugu Kan could not control his hatred. He gritted his teeth and said, a warrior like you actually appeared in the 9 regions. What a pleasant surprise. But what surprised me even more was that you were the person that the Jueying Shrine wanted. Jueying Palace. When Nietion heard this name, his eyes narrowed and his face darkened. It turned out that Jueying Temple had come looking for Evernight. It was no wonder. The Evernight was the #1 assassin organization in the Myriad regions. It was said that they could kill anyone in the Myriad regions. Although the Jueying Temple was powerful, they couldn't chase after Nietion throughout the 10,000 territories. The price was too high, and the chances of success were not high. Nighttime was different. Their claws and teeth were all over the Myriad regions, and they were searching for Nietion on a large scale. QL 11-inch Nietion, if you know what's good for you, you'd surrender and come with me, Dugu Kan said sinisterly. An evil aura circulated on his bony face. Do you think I'm a type to surrender? Nietion laughed coldly. Back then, I only had the strength of an overgod. You weren't even a match for me. Now you want to catch me? You're delusional. Arrogant. Dugukin was immediately enraged. He roared attack. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As his voice fell, a group of black-robed figures appeared, releasing a terrible aura in the air. When they linked together, it was extremely terrifying. When Nye Tian saw this, his expression darkened, and his expression changed. These black-robed warriors were all at the false sage realm. The weaker ones were at the 1st rank, while the stronger ones were at the 5th rank. At this time, they seemed to have formed a terrible boundary in the air. The power of the boundary released a strong, strangling power in the void. Even more terrifying was that the power of the boundary allowed these warriors to easily resist the special space-time suppression of the 9 regions. Nye Tian, let me deal with them. At this time, Desolation Ghost took a step forward. His aura exploded, but his body suddenly swayed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? Desolation Ghost's eyes trembled. He was shocked. The moment he released his aura, an extremely terrifying pressure came from the surrounding space, causing him to spit out blood on the spot. Desolation Ghost, leave these people to me. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, and he signaled Desolation Ghost to retreat. Desolation Ghost was not from the 9 regions, so he was suppressed by the 9-region space-time. Previously, he had been restraining his aura, so he only felt a slight suppression. Desolation Ghost frowned and retreated. Nye Tian, do you really think you can fight against so many pseudo-saint warriors by yourself? Dugukin sneered and said in a loud voice, I have set up a double-layer boundary. These false sage martial artists are not suppressed by the 9-region space-time. Today you're dead. Is that so? Nye Tianling laughed, his face gloomy and stern. Only then did he realize that the surrounding void had already been set up with a layer of boundary. Just now, these false sage martial artists had activated another layer of boundary, which allowed them to temporarily break free from the 9 regions' space-time suppression. Actually, what Dugukin said was not complete. These martial artists were actually protected by the 3 layers of boundary. Each of them had also swallowed a divine elixir, which contained boundary power to resist the space-time suppression. In this way, the 3 layers of boundary could barely resist the 9 regions' space-time suppression. The 9-region space-time was extremely unique. Even a peak false sage martial artist could only exert the strength of a peak supreme god without any means of resistance. The 9-region space-time suppression was more like a plain barrier, suppressing the strength of all martial artists below the half-saint level. Only those who were born in the 9 regions could resist the space-time suppression. If it were not for the existence of the space-time suppression, any expert from other domains could be an invincible existence. At this moment, even if Dugukin and the others activated the 3 layers of boundary, they could only maintain it for a short period of time. Not only did the 9 regions space-time suppress the martial artists, but it also suppressed the boundary and formation from the outside world. Attack! At this moment, Dugukin roared. His voice reverberated in the void, which was extremely ear-piercing. Kill! Dozens of martial artists in black roared at the same time and immediately attacked. Their violent auras linked together, and a terrifying strangulation force appeared in the void, pressing down on the void. It whistled out, forming a strangulation storm in the air, and pressed down on Nye Tian. Watch out! When the desolate ghost saw this scene, his eyes could not help but tremble as he cried out. The aura of the strangulation storm was extremely violent and terrifying, as if it was going to tear everything apart. Nye Tian frowned slightly. He did not expect the joint attack of dozens of martial artists to be so terrifying. Sacred heaven-defying sword. Sky's sword reverses the sun. In an instant, Nye Tian did not hesitate. He let out a low roar, and sword intent burst out his body. At the same time, violent blood, chi, surged out of his body. Chapter 3196. Rumble. High up in the sky, an incomparably violent strangulation storm swept through the dark clouds and the void. The surrounding space became incomparably dark under the terrifying power, as if the world was about to be destroyed. Nye Tian, you're dead. Upon seeing this, Dugu Kan's bony face trembled with excitement, as if he could already see the scene of Nyetian being minced into mincemeat. Nyetian was a thorn in his heart. If he couldn't kill Nyetian, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Buzz! At this moment, a clear and intense sword cry rang out in the void. It was as if it had the power to pierce through the clouds and split rocks. The dazzling sword radiance was crimson in color as it cut through the gloomy sky. The defying sacred heaven sword, defying the sun coupled with Nyetian's fiend god blood chi. It even stimulated the power of the 9 heavenly shackles in his body. The power of this sword was beyond imagination. Rumble, hiss, hiss, hiss. In the next moment, 2 terrifying forces collided with each other, causing space to rumble. The heavens and the earth were filled with killing intent, and the space trembled. Ear-piercing rumbles resounded incessantly, as if the heavens and the earth were about to collapse. So strong. Desolate Ghost's eyes trembled when he saw this scene. Then, he moved and retreated frantically. He didn't expect Nyetian's strength to be so terrifying. Previously, he had fought with Nyetian. Although they were evenly matched, he had never used the Hand of Destruction. However, he had never used the Hand of Destruction before, so he had always assumed that his battle prowess was higher than Nyetian's. Moreover, after merging with the Azure Dragon Astral Soul, his strength had increased to the 9th stage Pseudo-Sage. But now, after seeing Nyetian's shocking battle strength, he realized that Nyetian's hidden battle strength was no less than his. Therefore, if it was a life-and-death battle, it would be hard to say who would win. However, Nyetian was only a 3rd stage Pseudo-Sage, while Desolate Ghost was a 9th stage Pseudo-Sage. Furthermore, he was a 9th stage Pseudo-Sage who had awakened the Hand of Destruction. One could well imagine how terrifying Nyetian's talent was. At this moment, Desolate Ghost Boundless truly realized the disparity between him and Nyetian. At this point, he no longer had any desire to compete with Nyetian. Boom! Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, a loud explosion erupted high up in the sky. Waves of violent energy surged out and wreaked havoc in the space. The strangulation storm in the void was forcefully broken by the sword's shadow and instantly collapsed. How is this possible? The sudden scene caused Dugu to cry out in shock. His pair of skull-like eyes suddenly widened, obviously shocked to the extreme. QL11, he couldn't imagine that Nyetian, a rank 3 Pseudo-Sage, could unleash such terrifying power in an instant. All of you must die. At the instant when the whirlwind shattered, Nyetian's silhouette abruptly moved. A roar akin to that of a ferocious beast erupted from his throat as a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back. His silhouette flickered as he unleashed the astral heavenly slash. No! The dozens of martial artists in black immediately felt the approaching aura of death. They couldn't help but scream and retreat instantly. However, their retreat caused the boundary to collapse. Their bodies swayed, and they immediately vomited blood. Nye Tianling sneered as the sword's shadow descended. In the midst of a shower of blood, dozens of martial artists in black died, tragically in an instant. Not even their corpses were left. Dugukin was taken aback by the scene in front of him. He couldn't help but retreat. He was so frightened that he couldn't even stand. He originally thought that he would definitely be able to kill Nye Tian if he attacked again. However, Nye Tian's combat strength had far exceeded his expectations. The other martial artists in the surrounding void were also scared out of their wits. Their bodies trembled as they looked at Nye Tian with horror and fear. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that a rank 3 pseudo-sage expert could actually have such heaven-defying combat strength. Nye Tianling stood in the air, his eyes filled with a sharp, murderous intent. That strike just now was already his limit. The strangulation storm formed by the dozens of martial artists was really terrifying. If Nye Tian's strength had been slightly weaker, he would have been the one to die. Although these martial artists could resist the suppression of the 9-territory space-time with the help of the 3-layered boundary, they obviously couldn't completely break free from the suppression. If they had been in another realm, Niet Tion wouldn't have been able to win the battle just now. Dugakan, it's your turn. At this moment, Niet Tion suddenly turned around and locked his cold, stern eyes on Dugu. Dugu Kan's body trembled as he felt the almost tangible killing intent. His eyes narrowed in horror. At this moment, his first reaction was to retreat. The next moment, he moved his palm without hesitation and took out a space-time scroll. Trying to escape? Niet Tion's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. He released all the sword intent in his body and launched the starlight heavenly slash. A terrifying sword shadow appeared, like a brilliant waterfall, as if it was going to split the entire world. Dugu Kan instantly felt the approaching killing intent. He had just opened the space-time scroll in his hand, and a foot had already stepped into it. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. Hwah! The sword shadow rolled over and poured down. The incomparably sharp sword shadow exploded with violent power. The next moment, a tragic scene happened. Half of Dugu Kan's body was directly smashed into pieces and turned into a bloody light. The shocking scene made the other martial artists in black stiffen, and their expressions were extremely shocked. Who would have thought that the great elder of Great Evernight, a rank 7 pseudo-sage expert, and a peak spirit formation master would be mercilessly killed in such a way? Dugu Kan would never have dreamed that not only did he fail to kill Niet Tion the second time he personally took action, but he was also killed by Niet Tion so easily. This is the great elder of Great Evernight? What mess! Niet Tion laughed, and his eyes shone with sharpness. Then he moved and caught the space-time scroll in the void. Then he pulled out the other half of Dugu Kan's body. Dugu Kan's other eye, which was like a skull hole, was wide open. It was clear how frightened and desperate he was before his death. The great elder of Evernight's sinful life ended in such a way. It was a pity. At that moment, the others reacted. Their eyes trembled and they fled in all directions. Die! Niet Tion's eyes turned cold and the corner of his mouth twitched. He spat out a cold word and thrust out the starlight heavenly slash. Countless sword shadows appeared, like a sky full of arrows, covering the sky and covering the earth. Where the sword shadows fell, incomparably tragic cries sounded. The void was dyed red. After losing the protection of the spirit formation, the martial artists in black were like chickens and dogs in Niet Tion's eyes. They did not have the slightest ability to resist. They were all assassins of the Dark Knight. God knows how much blood their hands were stained with. Niet Tion naturally would not show them any mercy. So strong. Desolate Ghost watched from the side for a long time. After a long time, he finally reacted and said 2 words. Chapter 3197. You're fatty? All of a sudden, Niet Tion sensed an aura lurking in the air. His face grew grim as he let out a bellow. Get your ass out here. In the next moment, he frowned and roared like a ferocious beast. Then, he reached out his hand, and a violent force enveloped a part of the space. Boom! Bang! That expanse of space trembled slightly, and then a muffled bang resounded as a figure emerged from it in a sorry state. Niet Tion's eyes narrowed as he looked at the figure, and a strange expression appeared on his face. It was a young cultivator. He had handsome features and a tall figure. At first glance, he looked very heroic. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that this person's eyes were rolling around, which made him look like a pervert. It did not match his appearance at all. Niet Tion stared at this person and was stunned for a long time. Finally, he reacted and said, You're fatty? Fatty, Jean de Bayo. Niet Tion felt a familiar aura from the person before him. It was Jean de Bayo's aura. However, this person's appearance was worlds apart from the Jean de Bayo that Niet Tion remembered. The Jean de Bayo in the past had the same width from top to bottom. He was like another fat cat. However, the person before him was ridiculously handsome. Niet Tion could not associate him with Jean de Bayo. However, this person's aura was exactly the same as Jean de Bayo's. His perverted eyes were also the same as Jean de Bayo's. Damn, boss, it's really you. At that moment, The man let out a strange cry and dashed over excitedly, grabbing Nietion in his arms. Nietion was stunned on the spot. He only reacted when Jean de Bayo let go of him. He asked in astonishment, "De Bayo, it's really you? It's me." "Haha, boss, you can't recognize me anymore, right?" Jean de Bayo laughed loudly. He was very proud of himself. Nietion swallowed his saliva. After a long time, his expression calmed down. Jean de Bayo's transformation was too great. He found it hard to believe. Who would have thought that the guy who was as fat as a ball would actually grow into a handsome young man? Next, Jean de Bayo looked at Nietion with a wretched look in his eyes and exclaimed, "Boss, your current strength is too amazing." He had been hiding in the void all this while and had seen everything that had happened. The combat strength that Nietion had displayed was simply too terrifying. It was simply abnormal. "It's all right." Nietion faintly smiled, then immediately called Desolate Ghost over and said, "Fatty, this is my friend, Desolate Ghost." "Holy shit, such a domineering name. Your father really dotes on you." Jean de Bayo looked at the boundless ghost Desolate, laughed, and introduced himself. "I am Jean de Bayo." Desolate Ghost Boundless Ghost was stunned for a moment before he forced a smile. "Ghost Desolate, Fatty is my good brother. He's just a bit careless. You'll be fine once you get used to it." Nietion laughed and nodded. Desolate Ghost Boundless Ghost nodded and smiled. "Fatty, why are you here?" Afterwards, Nietion frowned and could not help but ask. A few months ago, the Alliance Master sent a letter to the Shenwu Sword Pagoda. He said that some strangers had appeared in Nine Heaven City. The Sword Master was worried, so he sent some cultivators to Nine Heaven City to have a look. "I came with them," Jean de Bayo snickered. "Fatty, looks like you're doing quite well in the Shenwu Sword Pagoda." Nietion smiled and said, "It's all right." Jean de Bayo smiled proudly. "Boss, I'm already a peak over god now." "Ha! Not bad." Nietion was stunned and forced a smile. With Jean de Bayo's age, it was already very impressive that he was a peak over god. However, compared to Nietion, this kind of strength was still far inferior. "Fatty, how are the others? How are Duanmu Lu and the others doing?" Nietion asked. "They're doing well." Jean de Bayo snickered. "Boss, did you know? Duanmu Lu is a monster now. He's already over god. The Sword Master wants him to be the next owner of the Divine Sword." Nietion's eyes flickered slightly, and he smiled faintly. Paramount, God's strength. Duanmu Lu had the Octagon Sword Seal and was extremely talented in the way of the sword. It was not bad for him to be over god. However, Duanmu Lu was not going to be the owner of the Divine Sword. He still had a long way to go in the way of martial arts. "Fatty, other than you, who else has come in Nine Heaven City?" Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked. "I came alone. Duanmu Lu and the others are like madmen, cultivating day and night. They said that when they see you, they won't embarrass you too much." Jean de Bayo chuckled. "Luckily, I'm not your disciple. Otherwise, I'd have to cultivate every day. It's so boring." Nietion laughed and curled his lips. "You're just too lazy. Otherwise, your strength wouldn't be below Duanmu Lu's. It's good that I'm lazy. I miss my old physique, haha." Jean de Bayo chuckled. "All right, let's return to Nine Heaven City." Nietion smiled and didn't say anything else. They headed straight for Nine Heaven City. Soon, the three of them arrived at Nine Heaven City and entered the Wind and Cloud Alliance. "Nietion, you're finally back." In the Wind and Cloud Grand Palace, Niet Dao laughed heartily as he looked at Nietion. His eyes shone with the light of passion and tears. This time, Nietion's strength had far exceeded his imagination. He never imagined that Nietion could reach such a level of strength. He was very gratified to have such a grandson. "Grandpa, are you all right?" Nietion smiled. After scanning Niet Dao and the others with his divine sense, he felt much more at ease. "Yes." Niet Dao nodded heavily. "Mr. Hua sent someone to deliver Manjusaka. After we consumed it, our martial bodies have already begun to recover. It won't be long before we completely recover our previous strength." "That's good." Nietion nodded slightly, a trace of helplessness flashing in his eyes. After consuming Manjusaka, Nie Dao, Nie Feiyu, and the others had yet to completely recover their martial bodies. If they forcefully opened the Nie family's ancestral land, they might be in danger. To be on the safe side, they had to wait for a period of time before opening the Nie family's ancestral land. This way, Nie Tian still wouldn't be able to see Mo Rushi. He had no choice but to wait for a few more months. With the physical condition of Nie Dao and the others, they would completely recover in a few months at most. There's no need to rush now. Nie Tian smiled inwardly, comforting himself. Grandpa, I heard from DeBeo that some unfamiliar martial artists have recently appeared in Nine Heaven City. What's going on? Nie Tian looked at Nie Dao and asked with a frown. Boss, you've already dealt with those strangers. Before Nie Dao could speak, Jean DeBeo chuckled and said. Nie Tian was stunned. So the strangers Jean DeBeo spoke of were Dugu Kan and the others. Dugu Kan and the others were all killed by Nie Tian. Even if Nightfall wanted to make a move again, it would probably take a long time. Nine Heaven City was definitely safe for the time being. Next, Nie Tian spoke with Nie Dao and the others for a while before leaving the Wind and Cloud Great Hall. Afterwards, Nie Tian followed Jean DeBeo to a small courtyard with a unique design. Boss, I prepared a surprise for you. Jean DeBeo looked at Nie Tian and chuckled mysteriously. Chapter 3198. Registered Teacher Come. Jean DeBeo chuckled and led Nie Tian and the others into the courtyard. Linger, quickly come out, there's an important guest. Just as they entered the courtyard, Jean DeBeo shouted loudly. Linger also came? Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he exclaimed in surprise. Of course, he knew that the Jean DeBeo mentioned was Xiao Linger. Back in the plain world, Jean DeBeo had liked Xiao Linger. Until now, the two of them had never separated. Fatty, are you going to die? Don't you know that little Dan is asleep? What distinguished guest. Can't he just wait outside? A clear voice came from one of the rooms. It was Xiao Ling. Xiao Ling had a gentle and virtuous personality, but she would not stand on ceremony in front of Jean DeBeo. Desolate Ghost Boundless could not help but laugh when he heard Xiao Linger's valiance. Brother, sorry for making you laugh. Jean DeBeo embarrassedly nodded his head and shouted, Linger, the honored guest this time is something you can't imagine. Damn, Fatty. If you keep shouting, I'll tear off your ears. Xiao Linger's voice rang out from the room once again, following which a beautiful silhouette dashed out, looking extremely angry. It was Xiao Linger. However, when Xiao Linger saw the silver-haired man standing in the courtyard, her eyes immediately glazed over. Her little mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. Linger, do you still recognize me? Nie Tian looked at Xiao Linger and smiled. At this moment, meeting his old friends from the 3,000 small worlds once again made Nie Tian feel as if it had been a lifetime. Yeah, big brother Nie Tian, is that really you? Xiao Ling, who took a long time to come to her senses. Tears welled up in her eyes. It's me. Nie Tian smiled faintly as a warm feeling flowed through his heart. To him, Xiao Ling was like family. Honey, why are you crying? Your face won't look good if you cry. Jean DeBeo walked up to Xiao Linger and wiped her tears. Damn, Fatty, it's none of your business. Xiao Linger said fiercely, and then smiled through her tears. Nie Tian shook his head. After so many years, this pair of clowns still hadn't changed. Such a scene made him feel incomparably warm. It seemed that the surprise that Jean DeBeo had prepared for Nie Tian was Xiao Linger. It was indeed a pleasant surprise. Mother, I'm hungry. At this time, a childish voice suddenly rang out. Then a 3 to 4-year-old child walked out. His little face was chubby, and his little hands were rubbing his eyes. It was obvious that he had just woken up. The little guy was very cute, like a porcelain doll. Little egg, Mommy will carry you. Xiao Ling turned around and took the baby into her arms. Her eyes were filled with love. Nie Tian's eyes widened. Only then did he realize that this child was Jean DeBeo and Xiao Linger's child. These two fellows were quite fast. Mother, why are you crying? The little girl touched Xiao Linger's face and asked in a childish voice. Mommy is very happy. Xiao Linger nodded and then carried Little Egg to Nietion's side. She said to the little girl, "Little Egg, this is Mommy and Daddy's big brother. Greet him." Nietion chuckled, looking a little embarrassed. He wasn't even a father yet, but he was already an uncle. He looked so fierce. You won't greet him. The little girl looked at Nietion and blinked her big eyes for a long time. Then, she suddenly hid in Xiaoling Er's arms and said timidly. Nietion was taken aback and speechless. "Boss, this." Jean de Bao looked at Nietion with an awkward expression. Then he burst out laughing. Seeing this, Nietion and the boundless ghost wasteland also laughed. "Father, Mother, I'm back." Just then, a young voice came from outside the courtyard. Then a child walked in. His body was covered in mud, but his eyes were very bright. Nietion's eyes focused on the child. He was only 3 or 4 years old and looked very similar to Little Egg. However, his body was much more muscular. He was stunned. He didn't expect Jean de Bao to have 2 children. "Boss, twins." Jean de Bao looked at Nietion and chuckled. He pointed at the little boy and said, "This is the eldest. Ergo, the one Ling is carrying is the second, Little Egg." Nietion looked at Jean de Bao speechlessly. The name Jean de Bao was enough to make anyone speechless. He didn't expect these 2 children to be called Jean Ergo and Little Egg. Jean de Bao's father was truly a weirdo. "Father, Mother, who are they?" At this time, Jean Ergo walked over. His eyes were shining as he asked in a deep voice, "Ergo, this person is called Nietion. He's your father's big brother and also your teacher." Jean de Bao squatted down and pointed at Nietion. Nietion's eyes narrowed. Only now did he realize that Jean de Bao wanted Jean Ergo to take him as his master. Considering the relationship between Nietion and Jean de Bao, this matter naturally wouldn't be a problem. "The teacher you're talking about is him?" Jean Ergo looked at Nietion with disdain and said, "What ability does he have to be my teacher?" Nietion's eyes widened as he looked at Doggy Jean. It was hard to believe that a 3-year-old child would say something like this. Jean de Bao raised his head to look at Nietion and was speechless. "Ergo, what do you think I should do to become your teacher?" Nietion chuckled, paused, and looked at Ergo Jean. "I've awakened 9 Yuan meridians. How many have you awakened?" Jean Ergo's eyes flashed as he asked. Nietion's eyes narrowed as he scanned Jean Ergo with his divine sense. This kid was only 3 years old, but he had awakened 9 Yuan meridians. This talent was heaven-defying. "Perfect, I've awakened 10 Yuan meridians, one more than you," Nietion said with a faint smile. "Impossible. Everyone only has 9 Yuan meridians. How can you have 10? Jean Ergo screamed, but his young face froze as he looked at Nietion in shock. "You really have 10 Yuan meridians?" Nietion's brow furrowed, and he was also taken aback. Not only was this kid's talent heaven-defying, but his perception was even more heaven-defying. He actually found the cosmic origin stone. Jean de Bao, that fellow was simply a monster. "Boss, Ergo's body also has the 3,000 demonic god seal, but it's different from mine. It's stronger." Jean de Bao looked at Nietion and chuckled. Nietion was stunned for a few seconds before he nodded his head and looked at Jean Ergo. "Jean Ergo, are you willing to take me as your teacher?" Jean Ergo hesitated for a long time before he suddenly knelt down and kowtowed to Nietion 3 times. He stood up and said, "Since you have 1 more Yuan meridian than me, I'll let you be my teacher in name." Chapter 3199. Heaven Punishment Formation. Nietion was speechless. It took him a long time to react. He seemed to have been looked down upon by a 3-year-old child. He had only ever heard of a disciple in name. He had never heard of a teacher in name. This Doggy Jean kid had a mediocre name, but he had high standards. After that, Nietion didn't enter his room, but rather stayed in the courtyard and explained his situation to Jean de Bao. "All right, let's go now," Jean de Bao said without hesitation. "I can give you a few days to arrange things here." Nietion looked at Jean de Bao and said with a smile. He had wanted to give Doggy Jean and Jean Yadin a greeting gift, but he didn't have anything suitable for the siblings, so he gave up. Anyway, there was still a long way to go. There was no hurry now. Given his relationship with Jean de Bayo, there was no need for such formalities. No need. Ling, and the others are safe here. There's no need to arrange anything. Jean de Bayo laughed, looking unconcerned. Nye Tian could tell that Jean de Bayo didn't want to waste time. Moreover, he really didn't have time to waste. After some thought, he prepared to leave immediately. Jean de Bayo bid farewell to Chiu Ling, then left with Nye Tian and the others. Nye Tian informed Nye Dao, then headed straight for the headquarters of the Myriad Domains Guild. The headquarters of the Myriad Domains Guild was located at the edge of the Myriad Domains, the Tianqing domain. In the Myriad Domain system, the more peripheral a domain was, the stronger the cultivators were. For example, the Decimo domain that Nye Tian had just been to had even stronger cultivators than the Sacred Soul domain. The Boundless Ghost carried a space-time scroll with him, so he could travel through the Myriad Domains. However, the space-time scroll had a lot of limitations compared to the space-time formation. An ordinary space-time scroll would have to wait a long time before it could be used again. The space-time formation, on the other hand, could be used at any time. For example, the space-time formation of the Sacred Soul Academy could send cultivators to any domain in the Myriad Domains. Nye Tian, the Boundless Ghost, and Jean de Bayo appeared in the Wind Cloud Square. Boundless Ghost Desolate immediately opened the time-space scroll and entered it. His figure instantly disappeared. The next moment, they arrived in a completely unfamiliar world. The environment here seemed to be different from the other realms. The air was filled with a strange aura that seemed to be some kind of extremely sharp, killing intent. Nye Tian checked the surroundings and was relieved after confirming that there was nothing unusual. The Tianqing territory was a completely foreign world to them, so they had to be extremely careful. Next, Nye Tian asked around and found out that the headquarters of the 10,000 Domains Guild was located in the core city of the Tianqing domain, Tianqing City. Their current location was not far from Tianqing City. They were only 10,000 miles away from it. For safety's sake, they didn't ride on any flying mounts. Instead, they traveled tens of thousands of miles. 3 days later, the three of them arrived at the core city of the Tianqing territory, Tianqing City. Damn, this city gate is so majestic. Jean de Bayo couldn't help but exclaim as he looked at Tianqing City. The city gate of Tianqing City was at least 1,000 meters tall. From the outside, it looked like it was at least 10 meters thick. Furthermore, it was obvious that an array formation was integrated into the city gate to reinforce it. The most imposing thing was that on both sides of the city gate stood two giant statues. They were 4,000 to 5,000 meters tall and looked like two towering stone pillars. The two giant statues each held a giant sword in their hands, looking extremely formidable. According to rumors, Tianqing City was built during the primordial era. Although millions of years had passed, it was still perfectly intact. Most importantly, the entire Tianqing City was enveloped by a primordial great array, which was extremely terrifying. It was said that the existence of this great array was enough to allow Tianqing City to resist the attack of a sage head-on. However, the great array was very powerful. The price of maintaining the great array's operation was also very high. The amount of spiritual materials that the 10,000 Domains Guild expended on the Great Array every year was uncountable. It was likely that in the entire 10,000 domains, only the 10,000 Domains Guild was able to operate such a great array. The reason why the 10,000 Domains Guild's headquarters was built in Tianqing City was probably because of the existence of this great array. Nye Tian, you have to be careful. This Tianqing City is not simple. I'm afraid that everyone who enters the city will be suppressed by the Great Array. At this moment, the Ghost Emperor's voice rang out and reminded Nye Tian. This Great Array probably won't suppress the power of the stars, right? Nye Tian frowned and asked solemnly. That might not be the case. The Ghost Emperor laughed strangely and said, After all, your power of the stars has only unsealed 2 star-marked dark seals. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he became much more cautious. Fortunately, They only wanted to enter the city to look for someone and didn't want to do anything else. Following that, Niet Tian and the other two started to line up outside the city gate, waiting to enter the city. Every day, Tianxing City would restrict the entry of outsiders. Everyone who wanted to enter the city had to go through the strictest inspection. They queued for a full 3 days before finally entering the city. After entering the city, Niet Tian discovered that the great array that enveloped Tianxing City was much more terrifying than he had imagined. The suppression of the great array was very strong. Niet Tian could feel that he was only at the heavenly emperor realm. The great array had actually suppressed his strength from close to the sage realm to below the divine realm. Moreover, under the suppression of the great array, the boundary zone formation in his body was operating very slowly. Ghost Emperor, what kind of formation is this? Why is it so strong? Niet Tian frowned and asked the Ghost Emperor. This city is called Tianxing City. This formation should be one of the long-lost primordial 9 formations, the Great Heaven Punisher formation. The Ghost Emperor replied solemnly, clearly very shocked. He didn't expect that the long-lost Great Heaven Punisher formation in the sacred world would actually appear in a domain. The Great Heaven Punisher formation is indeed powerful. Niet Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he exclaimed inwardly. Then, the 3 of them entered the inner city. The streets were wide and very lively. Boss, it's very lively here. There are many beauties. Ha! Jean de Bayo chuckled and said, I'm going to feast my eyes while Linger isn't here. Niet Tian glanced at Jean de Bayo and smiled speechlessly. However, he knew that Jean de Bayo was just looking around. He wouldn't do anything reckless. Boss, we might be being followed. At this moment, Jean de Bayo suddenly transmitted his voice to Niet Tian and said solemnly, Being followed? Niet Tian was stunned and could not help but frown. They had just arrived at Tianxing City. How could they be followed? Boss, there seems to be more than one person following us. It seems like they have been following us since we entered the city. Jean de Bayo frowned and transmitted his voice again. Niet Tian furrowed his eyebrows and slowed down his pace. Stop! At this moment, a clear but deep voice was heard. Niet Tian's eyes narrowed. He suddenly turned around and saw a white-clothed figure appear behind him. It was a woman in a white dress. Her long hair fluttered in the wind. Her beautiful eyes were surging with a cold determination. Chapter 3200. The Tianxing clan Niet Tian's eyes widened when he saw the white-robed woman in front of him. The lady in white had an alluring appearance and an extraordinary temperament. Her pure white dress made her look like an orchid in an empty valley, lonely, cold, and arrogant. She stood there like a bloody lotus blossoming on top of an ice mountain, cold and prideful. Plus, this lady gave off a very unique vibe, as if she was a mysterious feeling built up from the unknown. The strangest thing was that there was a very strange aura on this woman's body that made him feel inexplicably familiar. Who are you? Do we know each other? Then, Niet Tian became cold. His gaze froze, and he spoke with a faint smile. At the same time, he carefully sensed the aura of the lady in white. However, the more he tried to sense the strange aura from the lady in white, the harder it was for him to do so. Come with me. The white-clothed woman sized up Niet Tian with her cold and beautiful eyes before she spoke in a tone that did not allow for disobedience. Why should I? Niet Tian's gaze froze, and he couldn't help but chuckle as the corner of his lips twitched. He and the lady in white did not know each other, yet she wanted to take him away. How could he agree so easily? The identity of the lady in white was unknown. Plus, Niet Tian and his group had just arrived at Tianxing City and were unfamiliar with the place. Therefore, he could not simply follow a stranger. Come with me. The lady in white frowned, and the way she looked at Niet Tian turned even colder. There was a hint of anger in her eyes. Niet Tian's expression darkened. This lady was not bad-looking, but her actions were far too overbearing. Boss, this lady is a little strange. After she appeared, the people who were following us seemed to have left. Just then, Jean de Bayo suddenly transmitted his voice to Niet Tian. Nietion's gaze froze as he exclaimed in his heart. It seemed like this lady in white had an extraordinary identity. Her appearance had scared away the people who were following them. Nietion did not know the identity of the people following him, but since the woman in white could scare them away, it was enough to show that her identity was not simple. But this was not the reason why Nietion had to go with her. The identity of the woman in white was mysterious, which made Nietion even more careful. If you don't leave now, it will be too late. The woman in white saw that Nietion was hesitating. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she spoke in a cold tone. Nietion laughed and said, "Are you saving me?" Bing Hongye, it's been a long time. At this moment, a low voice sounded in midair. Then, a figure descended from the sky and steadily landed between Nietion and the woman in white. Huh? Nietion looked at the figure that suddenly appeared, and his eyes narrowed. This was a young man with handsome and resolute features, and his eyes were extremely fierce, yet they revealed a strand of ruthlessness. "It's you, Yuan Tai." The woman in white, whose name was Bing Hongye, saw the young man who suddenly appeared. Her beautiful eyes trembled as she coldly called out his name. "The Bing clan's young lady who has always been living in seclusion. I didn't expect to see you here. What a surprise." The man named Yuan Tai sneered, his eyes surging with a playful glint. His eyes were like tentacles, roaming around Bing Hongye's voluptuous body without restraint. "Yuan Tai, watch your eyes." Bing Hongye's eyes darkened as she growled. "Bing Hongye, it's been so many years, but your cold arrogance hasn't changed at all." The corner of Yuan Tai's lips twitched, and he sneered. "Unfortunately, you are no longer the heaven's favored daughter of the past. With the Bing clan's current status, do you still dare to yell at me?" "Yuan Tai, the Bing clan status is not something you can comment on." Bing Hongye let out a hollow laugh and ignored Yuan Tai. She turned around and looked at Nietion. "Let's go." Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly. He was about to say something, but Yuan Tai interrupted him. "Go." "Which way?" Yuan Tai let out a hollow laugh. His eyes turned cold as he pointed at Nietion and said, "This man is mine for the Yuan clan." The cold voice was filled with an extremely domineering aura. Nietion's eyes narrowed after hearing Yuan Tai's words. A cold grin appeared on his face. This guy is even more domineering and unreasonable than Bing Hongye. Meanwhile, Nietion was curious as to why Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai were looking for him at the same time. From their words, it seemed like the Bing clan and the Yuan clan were looking for Nietion. Since Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai dared to be so arrogant in Tianxing City, it was obvious that their identities were not simple, and the clans behind them were extremely terrifying. At this moment, the surrounding crowd noticed Nietion and the others, and they all gathered around them. However, the crowd's attention was not on Nietion's group. Instead, they were focused on Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai. "She's Bing Hongye, the eldest daughter of the Bing clan. Why is such a terrifying person here all of a sudden? It's not just Bing Hongye, didn't you see? Even the second son of the Yuan clan is here. The Bing clan and the Yuan clan are both Tianxing clans. It's rare to see two great figures from both clans appearing at the same time." The crowd discussed among themselves with astonished expressions. Their eyes flickered with excitement, as if they were anticipating something. The direct descendants of two Tianxing clans appearing at the same time was a rare sight to see in Tianxing City. Most importantly, everyone in Tianxing City knew that the Bing clan and the Yuan clan were not on good terms. The Tianxing clan sounds pretty powerful. The corner of Nietion's mouth twitched as he listened to the crowd's discussion. He smiled inwardly. From the crowd's discussion, he could tell that Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai had high statuses. Heaven's Punishment City was the headquarters of the Myriad Domains Guild, the core of the guild. Since the Bing clan and the Yuan clan were called the Tianxing clans, it meant that the two clans had high statuses in the Myriad Domain Guild. Nietion was curious. Why would these two clans look for him all of a sudden? It was as if an invisible hand had appeared the moment he stepped into Tianxing City, trying to control him. Nietion had a feeling that Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai were merely pawns of that invisible hand. To be able to manipulate the Bing clan and the Yuan clan like pawns, their statuses and strength were unimaginable. Yuan Tai, the Bing clan wants him. You'd better not fight for him. Bing Hongye knitted her brows and spoke coldly. Her beautiful eyes emitted a cold intent. From her posture, it seemed like she was about to make a move. Bing Hongye, the Yuan clan, wants this kid. Yuan Tai responded coldly. Facing Bing Hongye's threat, he did not put it in his eyes at all. Nie Tian smiled bitterly. These two seemed to treat him like an object and were fighting over him. Unfortunately, Nie Tian did not want to be a pawn to be manipulated. He did not want to go to the Bing clan or the Yuan clan. Yuan Tai, don't force me, Bing Hongye said coldly. She took a step forward, and icicles appeared around her, as if the space was about to be frozen. Nie Tian felt a chill run down his spine. His eyes narrowed, and his expression changed. Chapter 32:01. You're arrogant. Nie Tian looked at Bing Hongye in surprise. Bing Hongye looked very young, probably around 1,000 years old, but she had the strength of a rank 5 pseudo-sacred. Her martial Dao talent was really strong. The Tianqing region was indeed a border region. The strength of the cultivators was really strong. At this moment, Nie Tian already knew that in the myriad realms, the more peripheral the realms were, the stronger the cultivators were. Therefore, peak forces like the Infinite Territory Guild, Juying Shrine, and Ten Directions Rakshasa Temple all appeared in the border regions. However, Bing Hongye's martial arts talent amazed Nie Tian quite a bit. What a terrifying aura! The surrounding people exclaimed in shock when they felt the chill in the air. As Bing Hongye released her aura, the space stagnation flood was filled with a terrifying chill, as though the space was about to be frozen. Everyone immediately felt the bone-piercing chill. Bing Hongye, if you want to fight, I, Yuan Tai, will gladly accompany you. At this moment, Yuan Tai snickered. The corner of his lips curled into a playful smile as he coldly said, Others might be afraid of you, but I, Yuan Tai, am not. Boom, boom, boom. After saying that, he took a step forward, and the bluestone slabs under his feet cracked. His aura was released like a wild dragon, and the space was immediately filled with a strong and vigorous qi. At this moment, everyone felt a strong pressure, as though a mountain had appeared above their heads. Nie Tian was stunned, and he looked at Yuan Tai with a serious expression. Yuan Tai's strength was stronger than Bing Hongye's, and he had reached the rank 6 pseudo-sacred. However, Yuan Tai was obviously much older than Bing Hongye, and he should be about a few thousand years old. But even so, a 6th-stage pseudo-sage at such a young age could be said to be extremely talented. Bang! At this moment, Bing Hongye's beautiful eyes trembled. She took another step forward, and the cold aura around her intensified. In an instant, the two auras collided, and the void rumbled. In the next moment, Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai retreated at the same time, and their figures stabilized at the same time. Although Bing Hongye's strength was a level lower than Yuan Tai's, she didn't lose to him in terms of aura. Bing Hongye, as expected, the number 1 genius of the Bing family. To think that you would dare to fight against my aura. Seems like I've underestimated you. After Yuan Tai steadied himself, a cold smile appeared on his face. Killing intent flickered in his eyes as he looked at Bing Hongye. Yuan Tai, I'm warning you one last time, get out of my way. Bing Hongye's beautiful eyes quivered as she let out a delicate roar. Her entire body emanated a frosty aura, causing her to look like a gigantic ice mountain. Is your warning useful? Yuan Tai sneered and pointed at Nie Tian. This brat must come with this young master today. Bing Hongye's beautiful eyes sank, and her beautiful face stiffened and became unsightly. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but have a strange look in their eyes. Many people looked at Nie Tian. It turned out that Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai had appeared here at the same time because of Nie Tian. The crowd couldn't help but feel puzzled. Who exactly was this ordinary-looking, silver-haired brat to be able to alarm 2 great heavenly executioner families at the same time? The two of you, have you asked for my opinion before fighting here? At this moment, the corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched slightly. He took a step forward and swept his gaze across Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai. Ever since Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai appeared, they had been fighting, completely ignoring Niet Tion's existence. It seemed like in their eyes, Niet Tion was an object that didn't need to be taken into consideration. However, at this moment, Niet Tion suddenly stood out, causing their faces to involuntarily change. The battle between Ice Hongye and Yuan Tai just now had made Niet Tion feel that something was wrong. Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai seemed to have a certain level of resistance against the suppression of the Heavenly Executioner formation. Niet Tion was a pseudo-sacred realm cultivator, and under the suppression of the Heavenly Executioner formation, his cultivation was only in the Heavenly Emperor realm. However, the strength that Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai had displayed previously far surpassed ordinary Heavenly Emperors. Do you have the right to object? Yuan Tai laughed coldly, looking at Niet Tion with a cold and disdainful gaze, as though he was above everyone else. It was as though in his eyes, Niet Tion was just an ant, waiting for his orders. You're very arrogant. Niet Tion looked at Yuan Tai and laughed, before shaking his head. Lad, the reason why you're still alive is because you're still useful. Otherwise, you'd be a corpse by now. Yuan Tai laughed coldly and said disdainfully, You're an idiot. Just as he finished speaking, before Niet Tion could say anything, Jean de Bao spoke up with a sneer. What did you say? Yuan Tai was stunned for a moment. He then looked at Jean de Bao with a pair of murderous eyes. He couldn't believe that someone actually dared to call him an idiot in the Heavenly Executioner City. I said you're an idiot. Jean de Bao laughed again and said in a loud voice. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's eyes widened in shock. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive. You're courting death. Yuan Tai's eyes widened and he roared. He immediately attacked, slamming his palm forward. The space trembled slightly as a shadow of a palm appeared, emitting a terrifying force as it flew towards Jean de Bao. The crowd's eyes widened and immediately focused their attention on Jean de Bao. Bang! However, at that moment, a shadow of a sword appeared and swept across, shattering the shadow of the palm. This unexpected scene caused Yuan Tai to exclaim in shock. He then looked at Niet Tion. Obviously, he didn't expect Niet Tion to be able to unleash such a terrifying force under the Heavenly Punishing Formation. Bastard, you've angered me. The next moment, Yuan Tai's eyes turned cold as he let out a roar. His entire body's strength was unleashed, striking the space violently. This time, he was truly enraged. Niet Tion's eyes focused, and he took a step forward fearlessly. Ever since Yuan Tai had appeared, he had been extremely annoyed by his attitude. He had wanted to attack for a long time. Yuan Tai, you're so hot-tempered. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Then, a figure in a green robe descended from the sky and stood between Niet Tion and Yuan Tai. Niet Tion's eyes focused as he looked at the newcomer. The newcomer was a young martial artist dressed in green. His facial features were handsome, and he had a heroic spirit. His eyes were filled with an extremely resolute light. Lu Qingxian. The moment the cultivator in green landed, Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai exclaimed at the same time when they saw the former's appearance. The first young master of the Lu clan. At the same time, the surrounding crowd exclaimed in shock. Who would have thought that at that moment, another direct descendant of the Heavenly Punishing Clan would appear? Furthermore, Lu Qingxuan's status in the Lu clan was extremely high. He was the successor of the clan leader. Chapter 3202. Have a good time. Niet Tion looked at Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai's reaction, and then at the crowd's reaction. Of course, he could tell that this young martial artist, named Lu Qingxian, was also not a simple character. And it was obvious that Lu Qingxian was also here for Niet Tion. What was wrong with these Tianqing family people? Why did they appear at the same time and look for Niet Tion? Lu Qingxian, what are you doing here? Yuan Tai asked in a low voice as he stared at Lu Qingxian. Lu Qingxuan's Lu family was also one of the Tianqing families. Lu Qingxuan's sudden arrival made Yuan Tai puzzled. He began to wonder who Niet Tion was. If Bing Hongye's appearance was an accident, it would make sense. But it was strange that Lu Qingxian was here as well. Bing Hongya looked at Lu Qingxian, her pretty face darkening. She obviously had the same doubts as Yuan Tai. She was curious why Yuan Tai would look for Nie Tian. Now, that Lu Qingxian was here, it made her even more curious. She even felt that the people of the Feng family would appear later. What was Nie Tian's identity? How could he have alarmed 3 Tianqing families at the same time? Bing Hongya was looking for Nie Tian under the order of the Bing family's elder. Speaking of which, this was the first time Bing Hongya had seen the Bing family's elder. Previously, she only knew that there was an elder in the Bing family, but she had never seen the elder before. There was even a period of time when she thought that the elder might have fallen. Until a few hours ago, the elder suddenly appeared and showed her an image, asking her to find the person in it. And the person in the image was Nie Tian. Bing Hongya did not know who Nie Tian was, nor did she know why the elder was looking for Nie Tian. She only knew that she had to bring Nie Tian back to the Bing family at all costs. Yuan Tai, Tianqing City doesn't belong to your Yuan clan. Why can you come, but I can't? Lu Qingxian smiled faintly, and his tone was filled with contempt. You? Yuan Tai's face darkened, and he was speechless. Lu Qingxian smiled faintly, and then looked at Nie Tian. He bowed slightly and appeared very respectful. Mr. Nie Tian, I am Lu Qingxian of the Tianqing family. I would like to invite Mr. Nie Tian to the Lu residence as a guest. I wonder if Mr. Nie Tian would do me the honor? Nie Tian could not help but stare at Lu Qingxuan's words. Lu Qingxian knew his name. Bing Hongya and Yuan Tai were shocked too, and their faces turned pale. Lu Qingxian really came for Nie Tian, and he even knew Nie Tian's name. The 3 great Tianqing families, the Bing family, the Lu family, and the Yuan family had all come looking for Nie Tian at the same time. When the crowd saw the scene in front of them, their eyes trembled and they were completely stunned. The dignified young master of the Lu family was actually so respectful in front of a young martial artist. This was really strange. Who was this silver-haired martial artist in front of them? How could he have alarmed the 3 great families? Nie Tian looked at Lu Qingxian, and the corner of his mouth twitched. It was a very strange smile. Bing Hongya, Yuan Tai, and Lu Qingxian appeared almost at the same time, and they all came to look for Nie Tian. And the way they invited people was not the same. Bing Hongya was cold, Yuan Tai was overbearing, and Lu Qingxian was tactful. Although Lu Qingxuan's attitude seemed to be the most comfortable, Nie Tian did not like it. He could see that Lu Qingxian was only respectful on the surface, but in his eyes, there was a cold intent. What puzzled Nie Tian the most was that Lu Qingxian actually knew his name. Boss, there are a lot of experts around. At this moment, Jean de Bao suddenly transmitted his voice to Nie Tian and told him. Nie Tian frowned, and his face could not help but turn ugly. These experts are divided into 3 groups. They must have been brought here by these 3 guys. Jean de Bao added. Nie Tian's face instantly became even more gloomy, and he smiled bitterly in his heart. It seems like I have to choose one of these 3. Bing Hongya, Yuan Tai, and Lu Qingxian did not come alone, but had brought a large number of experts with them to hide in the surroundings. It was obvious that they had the greatest determination to take Nie Tian away. It was absolutely impossible for Nie Tian to escape unscathed. He had to choose one of the 3 clans. At this moment, he was very curious why these people from the Tianqing family would suddenly look for him. There must be an invisible hand behind all these things, manipulating everything. Mr. Nie Tian, let's go. At this moment, Lu Qingxian spoke again, and his attitude was even more respectful. You can't go. As soon as he finished his words, Bing Hongya and Yuan Tai exclaimed at the same time, and took a step forward to block their path. Lu Qingxuan's face sank upon seeing this. Bing Hongya and Yuan Tai's determination was stronger than he had expected. Don't be nervous. I haven't decided who I'm going with. Nie Tian let out a faint smile, and his eyes swept across Bing Hongya and the other 2 with a strange smile. Who are you going with? The eyes of Bing Hongya and the other 2 flickered, and they looked at Nie Tian with fiery eyes. I can see that you 3 are in high spirits, so why don't you have some fun? Nie Tian let out a faint smile, and his lips curled into a strange arc. Have fun? The three were startled, and they looked at Nie Tian and asked, "How do you want to play? Are you three confident in your own strength?" Nie Tian's eyes flickered, and he asked all of a sudden. Bing Hongye and the other two were stunned, and they didn't know what Nie Tian was going to do, but they still nodded. At this time, who would be willing to show weakness? Since that's the case, it's easy. Nie Tian smiled. Then he condensed the sword chi on his fingertip into a blade and drew a circle several meters wide on the ground. Then he stepped into the circle and said, "Since the three of you are very confident in your own strength, I will stand in this circle. The three of you can attack me, and each of you will have 3 moves. If anyone can force me out of the encirclement within 3 moves, I'll leave with that person." After saying that, Nie Tian's lips curled into a faint smile, and his eyes were filled with extreme confidence. Really? As soon as his voice fell, Bing Hongye and the other two opened their mouths in unison, and their eyes were filled with fiery passion. Of course, Nie Tian laughed and said indifferently. The crowd looked at Nie Tian with trembling eyes, and they couldn't help but discuss. This kid is too arrogant. He dares to play like this? Does he think the disciples of the Tianqing clan are trash? This silver-haired kid is definitely a madman. With his strength, it's already a miracle that he didn't get beaten to death, and he still dares to draw circles? He's courting death. Sigh, let's just wait and watch the show. In any case, I feel that this kid won't be able to resist any one of those 3. The crowd shook their heads as they discussed, obviously treating Nie Tian as an idiot. Nie Tian didn't care about anything else, and his gaze swept across Bing Hongye and the other two. He smiled and asked, "Who wants to go first?" Chapter 3203. Disguising as a pig to eat a tiger. Bing Hongye, Yuan Tai, and Lu Qingxian took a step forward at the same time, and the slate under their feet directly collapsed. The 3 of them obviously regarded Nie Tian as a weak chicken and wanted to be the first to attack. As long as they could force Nie Tian out of the circle, they could take him away. Then the first person to attack would obviously have the upper hand. The 3 of them had absolute confidence that they could force Nie Tian out of the circle. Therefore, as long as they could compete for the right to attack first, they would win. The 3 of you are so enthusiastic, it makes me feel very embarrassed. Of course, Nie Tian knew what the 3 of them were thinking. He smiled faintly and said with a playful look, "Why don't you let me decide the order of attack?" Bing Hongye and the other 2 were stunned for a moment, but finally nodded. In their view, whoever Nie Tian chose to attack first would actually be the one to go to. Nie Tian looked at Bing Hongye and the other 2 and finally stopped at Lu Qingxian. He smiled faintly and said, "First, Master Lu, it seems that you're the most pleasing to the eye. Then you should go first." Lu Qingxuan's eyes trembled, and he quickly bowed and said, "Thank you, Mr. Nie Tian." But although he was respectful on the surface, his eyes flashed a touch of coldness. He felt that he had deceived Nie Tian and won Nie Tian's trust. Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai's faces froze at the same time, and they looked as ugly as could be. But they had just agreed, and it was not good to turn hostile on the spot. They could only watch and pray that Nie Tian could block Lu Qingxuan's 3 moves. Then, Lu Qingxuan's provocative eyes swept over Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai, and finally fell on Nie Tian. He smiled and said, "Mr. Nie Tian, I have offended you. You're welcome." Nie Tian laughed and looked indifferent. Boom! The next moment, Lu Qingxian attacked directly with his palm. The palm force condensed into a palm shadow in the air and burst out with terrible power. Like a stormy sea, it blasted toward Nie Tian. So strong. Seeing this, everyone's eyes narrowed and their expressions changed. No one had expected that Lu Qingxuan's first palm would be so strong. He simply wanted to hurt Nie Tian. "What a good young master, Lu. You are indeed ruthless." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched as he muttered inwardly, "Are you trying to kill me with that palm strike?" His first choice of Lu Qingxian was to expose the latter's mask. If Lu Qingxian was really respectful, he would not have been so ruthless at this moment. Boom! At this moment, Nie Tian's body trembled slightly, and a scarlet halo surged around his body. It was the extreme fire, flaming heavenly armor. At this moment, his 9 extremes war god art had already been cultivated to the extreme fire heaven realm, and its defensive capabilities were extremely terrifying. In the next moment, a violent palm fell and bombarded Nietion's body, but it directly collapsed. Nietion stood in the same place, and his figure did not move. Everyone's eyes trembled, and they exclaimed in unison. After coming to their senses, many people hurriedly rubbed their eyes, thinking that they had seen wrong. Lu Qingxian was a pseudo-saint at the 6th stage. It was incredible that such a terrible palm hit Nietion head-on, but the latter did not have any reaction. How was this possible? Lu Qingxian was stunned and exclaimed. He could not believe the scene in front of him. Bing Hongye and Yuan Tai were also stunned, and their eyes surged with unconcealable surprise. Nietion's strength was far beyond their expectations. Strictly speaking, Nietion and the others at this moment only had the strength of the Heaven Emperor realm. But Nietion's martial body was obviously stronger. With a strong martial body and the extreme fire flaming heavenly armor, Lu Qingxuan's palm did not have the slightest effect on him. Master Lu, the strength of your palm is a little weak. At this time, Nietion smiled faintly and looked at Lu Qingxian. The meaning in his words was very obvious. Lu Qingxuan's eyes trembled. He was angry, but it was not good to lose his temper. He could only say, Mr. Nietion's strength, I admire it. But it doesn't matter, I still have 2 more chances. How could he not see that Nietion was playing with him? Just now, Nietion had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Master Lu, you have to seize the opportunity. Nietion's mouth twitched, and he raised his eyebrows and said, Of course. Lu Qingxian smiled slightly, and then the momentum of his whole body surged, and he struck out with his palm. Boom! The void suddenly trembled, and a palm shadow suddenly appeared. The momentum was several times stronger than before, as if to destroy everything. Bang! But the next moment, the palm shadow fell on Nietion's body and collapsed again. Nietion still didn't move in the slightest. This time, everyone's expression stagnated, and they all gasped. The shock in their hearts was written on their faces. If the previous palm was because Lu Qingxian did not go all out, then the current palm could show the true strength of Nietion. Impossible! Lu Qingxian screamed, sweat oozing from his forehead, and his face was very ugly. He did not expect that Nietion's martial body would be so strong. Idiot! Jean de Bao looked at Lu Qingxian. The corner of his mouth twitched and said with a smile, What did you say? Lu Qingxian suddenly turned around, his eyes flashing fiercely as he stared at Jean de Bao. I'm just telling the truth. Jean de Bao sneered and said, Some people are too fragile and can't accept the truth. What can I do? You. Lu Qingxuan's face darkened, and he was so angry that he could not speak. Master Lu, there is still the 3rd chapter continue. At this time, Nietion said with a faint smile. Lu Qingxuan's eyes darkened, and his face recovered a little. The most important thing at the moment was still Nietion. The last chapter, don't let me down. Nietion looked at Lu Qingxian and said with a faint smile. Lu Qingxuan's face was tense and ugly to the extreme. It turned out that the person who was fooled was not Nietion, but him. Nietion, since this is the case, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Lu Qingxian growled in his heart, and his whole body was wild, releasing a terrifying force. Roar! The next moment he blasted out a punch, and a black giant beast shadow appeared in the void, like a tiger coming down the mountain. With a roar, it rushed toward Nietion. Nietion saw this, but he was not in a hurry, and the corners of his mouth pulled into a faint smile. Bang! The next moment, the giant beast fell and hit Nietion's body, but after a muffled sound, it directly collapsed. At the same time, Nietion's figure swayed, but it only swayed a little, and then he stood firmly. Lu Qingxuan's palm strike only made Nietion's figure shake a little. Everyone's eyes trembled, and after a long time, there was a sound of saliva being swallowed. Nietian was so terrifying that he could easily block Lu Qingxuan's 3 moves. Lu Qingxian looked at Nietian as if he was looking at a monster. His face was as ugly as if he had eaten *T, and his mouth was wide open, but he could not say a word for a long time. First, young Master Lu, I'm sorry you lost. Nietian smiled faintly and looked at Lu Qingxian. Lu Qingxuan's body trembled, and he took a few steps back, almost unable to stand. Chapter 3204. To be triggered at any moment. It turns out that the eldest son of the Lu family is a good-for-nothing. At this time, Yuan Tai stood up and laughed wildly, not caring about Lu Qingxuan's feelings. Lu Qingxuan's expression was dull. He had been beaten black and blue. All right, since you said that young Master Lu is trash, then I'll let you, who isn't trash, make your move. Let's see if you can force me out of the circle. Nietian smiled faintly and looked at Yuan Tai with a playful gaze. Boy, you are too arrogant. Yuan Tai's face was so gloomy that it was almost dripping blood. How could he not hear the sarcasm in Nietian's words? But he, Yuan Tai, would not be fooled like Lu Qingxian. He would fight with all his strength, even if it meant killing Nietian. If you're not a good-for-nothing, then make your move. Nietian laughed. His eyes were even more contemptuous. You are courting death. Yuan Tai smiled coldly and growled. His whole body's aura burst out wildly, like a surging mountain. It was very terrifying. Boom! The next moment, Yuan Tai's palm shot out. The terrifying palm force actually condensed into a shadow of a mountain in the space, crazily pressing down on Nietian. Nietian's eyes narrowed slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched. A layer of starlight appeared around his body. The Star Soul shield was opened. Compared to Lu Qingxian, Yuan Tai's aura was stronger, and after the accumulation of power, the outbreak was very terrifying. Bang! Immediately, the shadow of the mountain fell, but directly collapsed. Nietian was like a rock, not moving at all. Seeing this scene, Yuan Tai's face darkened. It was very ugly. Of course, he could see that Nietian had used another defensive method. The defensive power was stronger than the previous blazing heavenly armor. Everyone's eyes trembled again, the shock in their hearts. It was indescribable. Who would have thought that when Nietian faced Lu Qingxian just now, he had hidden his strength? Yuan Tai, are you sure you are not a good-for-nothing? If I stand here without moving, you won't be able to do anything to me. Nietian looked at Yuan Tai and smiled coldly. Yuan Tai's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he clenched his fists tightly. His aura skyrocketed once again. Then, he released a second palm strike. An even more massive mountain void image appeared, descending with a rumbling noise. However, it collapsed again. Nietian remained motionless. Damn it! Yuan Tai's eyes flickered as he howled like a wild beast. His aura erupted forth as waves of terrifying energy blasted through the air, causing terrifying explosions. At this moment, his body was surrounded by a strong, bloody aura. Self-igniting blood chi. Seeing this scene, the crowd's expression changed, and they exclaimed in shock. Who would have thought that in the 3rd chapter, Yuan Tai would actually ignite his own blood chi? Is this idiot crazy? Seeing this, Jean de Bayo's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but feel nervous. He had yet to truly understand Nietian's strength, so he was a little worried. Desolate Ghost, on the other hand, had a calm expression on his face, as if he was not worried for Nietian. Nietian's terror was not something these people could imagine. Even if Yuan Tai were to ignite his own blood chi, he would not be a threat to Nietian. Dying. At this moment, Yuan Tai roared and slammed out with his palm. The air trembled as a blood-colored mountain appeared, slamming down on Nietian. The corner of Nietian's lips twitched as a layer of astral light appeared around him, transforming into a giant made of astral light. The armor of the astral soul was activated. With the armor of the astral soul and the shield of the astral soul, Nietian's defense increased once again. Within the Heaven Punisher array, the astral energy was suppressed to a certain extent. However, it was still extremely powerful. Under normal circumstances, Yuan Tai, who had self-ignited his blood chi, might be able to break through the armor of the astral soul and the shield of the astral soul. However, under the Heaven Punisher array, it was impossible for him to break through. Bang! The next moment, the blood-colored mountain fell and a muffled sound was heard in the air. Then, the mountain collapsed and turned into an endless force that raged in the space. Nie Tian's figure, however, was like a giant tree in the wind, not moving at all. The scene in front of them made everyone's eyes widen and their hearts filled with horror. It was hard to imagine that Nie Tian had such a terrifying defense. Do? Puff! At this moment, Yuan Tai looked at Nie Tian and was about to say something, but his body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The self-igniting of his blood chi, coupled with the attack of chi and blood on his heart, made it difficult for him to bear, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yuan Tai, it seems that you don't know yourself well enough. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, You are really a piece of trash, and even more useless than Lu Qingxian. Every word was like a needle pricking Yuan Tai's heart, almost driving him crazy. After a long time, the crowd calmed down and then turned their eyes to Bing Hongye. Since Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai had both failed, only Bing Hongye could make a move. Bing Hongye stood still and looked at Nie Tian with trembling eyes, as if she wanted to say something. The failure of Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai made her fully understand the strength of Nie Tian. She knew that, with her strength, it was impossible to force Nie Tian out of the circle. Instead of losing face, it was better to admit defeat. Bing Hongye's beautiful eyes trembled, and she took a step forward and finally opened her mouth. However, as soon as she spoke, she was interrupted by Nie Tian. Miss Hongye, let's go. Nie Tian looked at Bing Hongye and smiled faintly, then directly stepped out of the circle. Bing Hongye's beautiful eyes froze. She could not believe her eyes and shouted in surprise. The eyes of the crowd also trembled and became extremely strange. Nie Tian had walked out of the circle. What was going on? Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai were stunned by the scene in front of them, and their faces froze. Miss Hongye, let's go. At this time, Nie Tian spoke again with a faint smile. Yes. Bing Hongye responded at this time, and her delicate face could not hide her joy. It turned out that Nie Tian had already made up his mind to go with Bing Hongye. The reason why he accompanied Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai was that he wanted to prove his strength to those who were lurking around. In fact, he did not like Bing Hongye's attitude, but he hated Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai even more. At this time, Nie Tian also wanted to know who was looking for him. Want to leave? No way. But at this time, Lu Qingxuan's eyes darkened and he growled, Brat, do you think you can leave today? At the same time, Yuan Tai roared like a thunderclap. Boom! Boom! As soon as the two of them finished speaking, two terrifying auras shot up into the sky from the surrounding void. In midair, behind Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai, a group of martial artists in black appeared, each with surging aura and strong killing intent. Lu Qingxian and Yuan Tai were going to use tough means. You gone too far. Bing Hongye's pretty face turned cold when she saw this. She growled coldly, and then her aura went wild. The next moment, behind her, a powerful aura appeared, and a group of martial artists in black appeared. The hidden experts of the Bing family, the Lu family, the Yuan family, and the Tianxing family appeared at the same time. The situation instantly became tense, and a war was about to break out. Everyone was stunned and petrified.